Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
Here's a 1-1 pitch. Swing, there's a drive to left field, high and deep, back by the wall, and gone! Connor Wong lining a home run into the monster seats, just high enough to clear it, a bullet, and it's now 8-2 Red Sox, a 6-run 8th inning.
3-1. Canna swings, hits a high fly ball, deep left field, to the left field side and out of here. He has done it again against Philadelphia. 2-run homer to give the Mets the lead in the bottom of the 4th inning. Pitch, line drive, base hit, and it's going to win it. In is Marino, followed up by Marte. Carroll delivers a 2-run single, and the Diamondbacks walk it off. They beat the Rockies 5-4 and sweep the 4-game series. They've won 5 straight.
Murray darts, Murray fades, back to Jokic, 1 on the shot clock, lifts for 3, and connects it at the shot clock horn. Here's Murray finding KCP, who never left half court, shoots a 3, and connects, and Denver's lead grows to 19. Jokic, 25-point triple-double, back to the basket outside the mid-post against Adebayo. Makes to the baseline, 6 to shoot. Adebayo holding still, Jokic turns, fades, scores! 27, 10, and 14 for Nikola Jokic in Game 1.
Who said that we are favorites? The media, and Las Vegas told us that we were underdog before, if I'm correct, I think. I think we are not the favorites. I think in the finals there is no favorites.
Well, I think there's at least one favorite in the NBA Finals. Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. Andrew Rogers, Elijah Herbal in for, is it Herbal? So it's not like tea?
No, I have been fighting this battle my entire life because I made the mistake way back when of setting my Twitter handle as Herbal Essences, a play on the company.
Oh.
And then immediately everyone thinks now, well, the brand is pronounced Herbal Essences, so everyone's going to go with that. It's a battle I've been fighting. It's a battle I'm probably going to lose, and I'm okay with that.
Hey, I appreciate you filling in, though, for DB this morning. DB, I don't want to assume where DB's at this morning. I think I know where he's at.
Sounds like a fun segment. Where in the world is DB?
Right, and might as well just give him a call. Yeah, there he is. He's here with us in spirit. DB out doing some football things this morning, so Elijah in the seat. And Elijah had a very good last night, which is, are you only a Denver fan because we're close to Denver?
So the whole dad's side of my family essentially is from Colorado, or at least the mountains.
Okay.
So my dad grew up in Denver, grandparents in Denver, aunt and uncle in Denver, like his whole side of the family from that area. So I guess it's just all I've known growing up was Denver sports.
Yeah, you were rocking the Nuggets jersey on air yesterday, and I saw your tweet. Some people weren't very amused by.
I've been fighting that battle with listener crew for a while now. He thought the Suns were going to sweep the Lakers. He was wrong. Or sorry, the Suns were going to sweep the Nuggets. He was wrong. He thought the Lakers were going to sweep the Nuggets. He was wrong. And now whenever I am
he thinks
gloating with my Nuggets jersey on,
and on pace on being wrong. Something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
And I could give and take with the Nuggets for you, but your hockey personality, not so much. Not on board with your Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah, so it's tough to be a fan of two teams from Denver that are just this good.
Yeah. Okay.
They hate us because they ain't us.
There he goes. 7:03. Elijah's already on one. No, okay. Question for everybody out there, because I watched. All right, I'm going to set the stage. I was at the Storm Chaser Redbird game just to go see some of the Cardinals farm system guys play. I got a story for you in a sec. But when I got home, I started to rewatch the first half, and I went with key plays. Like, you know how you can do that on YouTube TV? You just hit key plays. But then I'm like, key plays isn't giving me anything. So I had to go back and watch from the very beginning. So I'm watching the game, and then fast forwarding through different parts, and I get toward second half, I'm watching, I'm like, okay, Denver's running away with it, and then all of a sudden the Heat go on in an 11-0 run in the fourth quarter. Classic Miami Heat move to make it a game. And ultimately, Denver wins. And I'm watching Jokic do his report on the court after the game, and I'm doing my notes, so I'm multitasking here. And I could have sworn he wasn't speaking English. Like, you ever like wonder like what somebody like when you're kind of eavesdropping into a conversation and you can only make out parts? I had to think, no, he's speaking English. He's speaking English. He's speaking English for me to hear English. Okay. But then every time I kept saying, no, he's speaking Serbian. He's speaking Serbian. You would think that you couldn't understand the language that he was saying. Right. So Shane, you used audio of Jokic in the intro without playing the music underneath. Could you just play that audio? No, that is different. That is different. No, I believe that is the call of Shohei Ohtani in the World Baseball Classic.
Underdog.
Okay, well, that was one word.
That we are favorites.
Okay, think Serbian.
And Las Vegas told us that we were underdog before. It's not correct, I think. I mean, I think we are not the favorites. I think in the finals there is no favorites.
Okay, did you hear like points in there?
Yeah.
You were thinking Serbian, like, wait, what did you just say?
Yeah.
But then you had to go back and listen, and he's speaking English.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
I thought I was crazy sitting on my couch last night. Like, I thought he was translating himself at first.
Oh, like talking and then saying English.
I thought he spoke in Serbian for all the Serbian fans out there, and then he just talked in English for the rest of us. Turns out I was completely wrong. Maybe a little crazy. And, things aren't wired correctly upstairs.
Well, what's really interesting with Jokic is Jamal Murray was talking about it a couple weeks ago. They did a little mini documentary. They put it up on the NBA's YouTube page where he was talking about his return from the knee injury and kind of his career. And he was saying, it's funny how the chemistry is so good between me and Jokic because, like, on the court, that dude doesn't speak English. He's like we go out there where we play basketball, and it's like the language we speak on the court is just basketball. Like, he doesn't speak English on the court. Sometimes he yells at me in Serbian at the court, but I know what's going on. I know what he wants me to do. We have that sort of chemistry, and that's Jokic for you. I mean, he was a kid who grew up in I want to call it in poverty, but it was like 7 people in a small little apartment in Serbia, and it was a time during a lot of warfare in the Yugoslav area. And he grew up through that, never thought he was going to be a basketball player, always wanted to be a guy who just like raced horses and had fun. But then he kind of realized, grew into his body, like, I could be pretty good at this. His brothers made him do it. So like, it was never one of those guys that grew up overseas, learning English, dreaming of playing in the NBA. It just happened to fall into his lap. And I think that's what's so interesting about Jokic is he doesn't want the limelight. He doesn't want any of that. He doesn't care if you can understand his post-game interview. He does that because he has to. Like, what he wants to do is play basketball, go back home and watch some horse races. That's all he is.
You're telling me that he doesn't care what I think in Omaha, Nebraska? You're telling me that Jokic doesn't think, hey, man, there's one guy in Omaha that, he can't understand me sometimes. So
Who said that we are favorites?
Yeah, that's right. That's right, Jokic. I did say you were favorites. So he likes horse racing, or he raced horses? Like, because you seem like, okay, here, I feel like we just buried the lead. Jokic on a horse. Right. So at what age did Jokic get bucked off his horse?
There's a great photo of him like as a teenager, because in Serbia, the popular one, I can't remember what it's called. I'm not a guy who goes and bets the ponies. But it's the one that they have like a chariot behind the horse. So you sit in the chariot behind the horse,
or like gladiators or whatever.
Yeah, you with like the goggles on and the helmet, and you're like in this chariot behind the horse going. So that's what he does, because I don't think a horse would probably like a 7 foot 300-pound man on his back.
I don't know how much of a jockey status he'd be carrying.
No, but like in the off season, he immediately goes back home to Serbia and just spends 12 hours a day at his horse barn, taking care of his horses, riding his horses. It's incredible stuff. And he said, like, what are you gonna do during your 10-day layoff before the finals? Like, what have you been doing the past week and a half? And he's like, I was hanging out by the pool and watching my friends race horses in Italy. I was following along on their live streams. Like,
that's sweet.
The dude, like, he's really good at basketball. I'm sure he loves basketball, but like his passion is horse racing, that's why he's like, he doesn't get any of the superstar treatment in America. Like, great basketball player, but he doesn't care about being a superstar. He cares about making a profit with the NBA. Like, I'm going to support my family, but his true passion is horse racing.
So it's funny that you say it's not his true passion, because I almost wonder if that's most people in life, because at least when DB and I have conversations a lot, like, he's like, if it was my choice, like, sports would be like 6th on my list. And like, for me, I'm like, well, I don't know if it would be that low. It would probably be up in the top 3, but I'd also say, like, I like to do other things just as much as I like sports. Maybe I like to do these things a little bit more. So a lot of times, you could be really good at something, but it isn't what you care for. Like, I love to cook, right? I love to go to the store, find a recipe, put it all together. It's like magic happens in the kitchen, right? And then, it's very, it's fulfilling when you're done. Like, not just because you're full of food, but, you did something and you achieved that. So it's funny that you say that basketball may not be his passion because, I guess I'll ask you, do you have something else other than sports that you're passionate about?
History, 100%.
Right.
I'm a big history buff.
So because of that, which obviously because you just went into detail about the warfare in Serbia with Jokic growing up, so you know a lot about that stuff. It's almost like I feel like that's something with everybody. Like it's like I do this job. It's still not my number one passion in life. I mean, it is a huge passion in the life, but it's not the number one thing. Like I can't wait to be a dad someday and coach my kids. Like that's something that means more to me than what I'm doing right now. So it's cool to know that, it's not end all be all for a lot of these guys. It's not like, hey, it's this and that's it. Like, no, there's much more to a person than just what you see on TV.
Well, it's like interesting, that idea of whenever you turn your passion into a job, is it still able to be a passion anymore? Like that's what some people talk about with professional athletes is
sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Like you talk to a lot of high level football players and they're like, no, like football isn't fun anymore. Like going out there and being in what's essentially a car crash on every single NFL Sunday, that's not fun anymore. I do it because it pays me really well. I take care of my family that way. Like football stopped being fun whenever I got to college. Then it became like a job. Like this is how I'm going to make it in the world. Is I'm a great football player. I'm going to go make millions of dollars in the NFL. You make it to the NFL, you're making millions of dollars. You don't like the risk of injury. You don't like getting your head taken off by some safety coming over the middle, but you do it because that's what pays the bills. It's going to pay you a lot better than anything else you can do, which is just like this really interesting thing because you see all these guys on NFL Sunday and you assume these guys, man, they must love what they do. Every kid grows up dreaming of being an NFL player. Like, man, they're living out their dream, but it's not always the case. Sometimes you're doing just what you can to pay your bills, which is so funny because that's such a normal person thing to have. Like, you know what? Like, yeah, my job's fine. I like my job, but at the end of the day, it pays the bills. It's so weird to think about an NFL player, an NBA player, an MLB player thinking the same thing. Like they wake up and say, man, I don't want to go to work today.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now, to change gears here just quickly before we get into we'll set up the show. We'll tell you who we're talking to by the end of this segment. But, since you live in Lincoln, did you guys get hit with any like rain yesterday? Because we got hit, which was a much needed hit in Omaha with some rain. So did you get any water up there?
Yeah, it was.
Did it turn into hail for you?
No,
because mine did.
Yeah,
and I was sitting. Here I am on the couch watching Jordy Ball pitch, and all I hear is thud, 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 thud on my roof. I'm like, gosh, those are some hard raindrops coming down. Not thinking anything about hail, and I go to my back door, and I'll tweet out the video that I took. The hail coming down was close to golf ball size at my house. But then 15 minutes down the road, a buddy of mine goes, yep, didn't get any hail. Hardly got any rain. I'm like, what is happening? So I knew I was going to the Redbirds Storm Chasers game last night. And I'm like, do I go? Do I not? Is it going to get rained down? I'm like, no, we're going to go. I think the rain was going to stop by 7. And so we're at the Storm Chaser game. And we're sitting first row on the first baseline. And it was the side of the Cardinals dugout. Okay. It was $2 beer night. So I had a beer in my right hand and I'm just talking to people. Cardinals get out of the first inning. Mm-hmm. Lucan Baker, first baseman for the Redbirds, starts trotting off the field. But it was a ground ball to him, so he had the baseball. So I stand up and I'm like, Lucan, waving my hand to the ball. I wanted the ball. There were hardly anybody, at least Cardinal fan wise, around me. So I thought I had a pretty good chance of getting the ball. Lucan makes eye contact with me.
Goes, this goofball.
No, he tosses the ball in the air right to me. I see it coming. It was like the scene in The Sandlot where they zoom in on the ball and I'm just saying, please catch it in the air. And all of a sudden, and I'm not making this up, I'm with like my buddy, 2 of my buddies in there. Well, one's wife, the other girlfriend. My buddy to my left, also a Cardinal fan, stands up as the ball's coming to me, he was sitting down. I made the eye contact. I called for the ball. Stands up, puts his left hand in front of my body, catches the baseball. So I'm like, come on, man. Like, at first I was like, just giving him a little ish for jumping up and stealing the ball. Didn't end up giving it to me.
Yep.
And I'm like, are you kidding? Like, are we for real right now?
I knew where this was going. Yeah.
You're going to be that guy. That's it. Then he claims because he's been yelling at Lucan's thighs most of the game so far, that's why the ball was tossed to him. And I'm like, let's rewind this real fast. Who jumped in front of who for the baseball? Like, was it you or was it me? And people behind us just butt in at a random moment and goes, well, he did call for the baseball. And I'm like, yeah, pound it out. Yeah, be on my team. But he kept the ball. So I'm like, all right, whatever. Like, I'll sit here. I'll enjoy my ale storm, my $2 brewski, enjoy the rest of the game. Second inning rolls around. Kramer Robertson coming off the field with a baseball. So I'm like, I'm getting a baseball now. So I stand up and I go, because Kramer was looking for somebody to toss it to and no one was asking for it. I'm like, I'll stand up then. So I call for the ball. Kramer tosses me the ball. And Ray goes, see, you did end up getting one. Ray, the buddy that took it.
Yeah.
And I go, yeah, I'll do you one better. And I handed it over to a kid about like 9 years old, 10 years old, wearing an Arenado jersey, which is that a soft subject for you?
The Rockies have hurt me too many times. No.
You're not too soft on that.
I have the hardened exterior on anything Rockies related anymore.
And so I handed the baseball over to the kid, came back, big smile on my face. We were good. Then my fiance later on in the game got a ball too, and she handed it off to a kid. And so my question that I'm going to pose for everybody out there, and to you, Elijah Herbal. Did I say herbal? Herbal. If it sounds like herbal, I'm saying herbal, just so you know.
You're not going to offend me.
If you were in my shoes in that moment, would you have A, reacted the same way for the first ball that was tossed to me? 2, just been like, it's a $5 baseball at the end of the day. Or 3, been like, I have to disown you as a friend.
It's a wrong question.
No, it's not. No, it's not, Giannis.
I think what changes the whole situation, if you get to the 9th inning and that was the only baseball that was there, like as a friend, like you should be like, I didn't call for this baseball. Like this was not important. Once there's more baseballs being tossed up to you and your friend group, now it reaches the point where it's...
So throughout the game, it's fine, right? But in that moment, you don't know if you're going to get to the 9th inning.
That's what I'm saying. Is whenever he reaches out and catches it, like it can be a funny move. Like, no, this is my baseball now. Like, I know you called for it. Finders keepers. Like, if this is a foul ball, I don't care if you saw it first. I got it first. That's my baseball. I understand that. If the 9th inning were to roll around and my buddy who called for the baseball is still baseballless, I would be like, all right, man, this baseball doesn't mean that much to me. Like, I was just giving it.
So I'm with you with the foul ball reference, 50-50 ball. Although when you call for a ball, normally it's not 50-50. It's 100% going to me, right?
Yes and no.
Because there's nobody else standing up around me. So there's only one person calling for the ball.
Yeah.
So if I'm playing catch, if we were on the field playing catch and we were just us two, and then somebody comes in and grabs the ball and runs with it.
But I think it goes back to like the childhood rules. Like you were a kid out at a baseball game, minor league, unaffiliated ball, whatever. Like where you're out in the berm, you call for the baseball, the right fielder tosses you the baseball, and then there's that big scrum of kids all fighting for like a jump ball. Like they're trying to box each other out, grab the baseball. In that case,
though, 12 kids were calling for the baseball.
That is true. Ooh, that's a great point. Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm trying to figure out. This is a complicated situation here.
It is. It was because in the first inning, like I said, nobody knew that more balls were going to come my way. Now, would I have kept the baseball even after the first inning? Probably not. I probably would have given it to a kid. So if that's the case, then you could probably make the argument of, well, you weren't going to keep it anyway.
This isn't about the baseball, is it? It's about something deeper. It's about friendship, isn't it?
Yeah, that's why the last one was disown the friend.
You seem very hurt right now.
Yeah.
You're gonna be all right.
I don't know if I'm gonna be all right. That's why I took my feelings to the show this morning.
Are there any like childhood traumas of losing baseballs that we want to talk about here?
I'm not on the black couch.
You're gonna dive a little deeper here.
No, you're not wearing the white coat or anything. I'm not talking to doctors. Like, this is just what's happening right now. But yeah, I was like, okay.
That thing wet.
This is how it's gonna be. All right.
It gives me a good idea. Like, I'm gonna be out in the baseball diamond this weekend umpiring some high school ball. Do I like take the game balls with me following the game and start like trying to find some kids to toss them to after the game? Is that how we improve umpire relations in this country?
I was going to say, as an umpire, you're taking a lot of heat right now because all we're seeing are some very bad calls in baseball.
Well,
some very bad calls.
I think some of the people on Twitter would like to make it seem like a bigger deal than it is. Like, don't trust the strike zone that you see on the TV.
Oh, and I'm not talking about strikes, like balls and strikes. I'm talking more when a player reacts with an umpire, it seems like an instant toss now. It's like no one can ever like really like say what's on their mind. If you're tossing cuss words and you're calling somebody out for, name call, whatever, like with an umpire, like, okay, you probably deserve what's about to come. But if you're like arguing the strike zone and then all of a sudden you get tossed, I'm like,
well, don't argue balls and strikes. Don't argue balls and strikes.
Call what's above the knees, right? Like let's
argue balls and strikes.
Framing. Let's talk about framing. Let's not call something at the shins.
Let's not argue balls and strikes. That's my umpire perspective. You're not going to talk to me about balls and strikes. That's my zone.
Oh yeah.
But no, I'm thinking that is the way to improve the umpire and fan relations in these countries is have the umpire toss out some baseballs following the game. Like you want the kids like moving forward. They don't want a baseball player's autograph. They want an umpire's autograph. That's how I think you fix this issue in this country.
I don't know. The only autograph people seem to want is Angel Hernandez.
That'd be such a killer autograph to have, dude.
Sweet. I mean, I guess CB Buckner's autograph would be good too. But again, we're talking about dog doo-doo umpires, like guys that are known for being a little adventurous with some calls.
I want Joe West. I want his autograph. Yeah, Angel Hernandez. Like,
you want Jim Joyce?
Like maybe I should make like a power ranking and try to get all the autographs because like that's got like who else is going around asking for umpire autographs? It's gotta be a unique collection. If I like have like
nobody
the best in the country, like this guy's got like the gold standard for umpire autograph collections. There's probably money to be made there.
So at the end of the day, am I a child? Am I a child for reacting how I reacted at the baseball game?
I think if you were to actually end the friendship, then you would be a child. But up until that point, I think you're okay. I think that's just a little bit of friendly banter.
All right. Well, Elijah, I appreciate you talking me back up and maybe talking me off the ledge a little bit, so to speak. We are talking to 4 different people today. Mike Schaeffer at 8 o'clock. He's been out on the high school scene. We'll talk a little bit about that and then just some other thoughts. He also gave a crystal ball earlier this week, so we'll touch on why he thinks Caleb Pyfrom is going to end up at the University of Nebraska. We'll talk to Ben Upton at 8:45. A little college baseball regional play begins today. The Road to Omaha. Mike Sautter at 9 o'clock, as we do every Friday. Also a guy on the high school scene, but he was also in L.A. Is it Orange County? I think that's L.A., right? Same thing?
Yeah,
History guy?
Yep.
Geography, too? He was out there covering some summer ball. So
I can't lie. I knew that from Real Housewives of Orange County.
Yeah, all right. As much as I said you talked me off the ledge, now I'm going to have to talk you off the ledge. We'll end with Matt Vrzal, too. No trivia today because DB's not in-house. So when we come back, we'll stick with football next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Hey, welcome back. Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. Elijah Herbal, Andrew Rogers, Shane Schillerberg, here on a Friday. Live from the H&H Chevrolet stage at Hail Varsity Club. Wherever you find us, whether it's in town, 590 ESPN Radio in Omaha. We are live on Twitter, live on YouTube. You can catch us on the Hail Varsity Radio or Hurrdat Sports YouTube page. If you miss anything from today's show, you can always go back and catch it on your favorite podcast app. That's Apple, that's Spotify. I don't know if there's another one. Those are the only two I use, so those are the only
Amazon.
Two you should use. Oh, Amazon. All right.
It's on Amazon.
How about that? Elijah coming in clutch. I got to write that down because I know I'm going to forget that at some point in time. And if you want to give us a call, 888-638-4876, give your thoughts anytime throughout the show.
Yeah, the best way I've found to describe it is just wherever you get podcasts. You're going to find Hail Varsity Radio, Coffee and Cream, literally like whatever you use. Search it up. You're going to find it on there.
Yep.
And if you don't, reach out to us. We'll get it up on your favorite podcast streaming site.
Shoot us a message at Andrew Rogers CC on Twitter. He's at Herbal Essence. Essences. That's a lot. So growing up, before we get into football talk, I had a list growing up.
Uh-huh.
Believe it or not, like I could not say my S's.
There's got to be I couldn't say my R's.
No way.
There's got to be some sort of weird like channel of kids who need speech pathology, then going into radio or
going
TV.
into broadcasting. Yeah. So I had a coach for about was it 2 years? Could have been more. But I would
119.
That's about as many visits as I made to go see her. And it was more than just Sally sells seashells by the seashore. Like it was much more than that. We were practicing S's for an hour. And I hated every second of it because, for one, if I'm not good at something, normally I'm not going to buy into it. But two, I could have been outside playing with my friends, and here I am in a classroom after school hours with a what is the official title of somebody that helps me with my speech?
Speech pathologist.
Pathologist?
Yeah.
Okay. See, that's why you're here. Sometimes I can be pretty slow, pretty dumb when it comes to titles and things.
Especially this early in the morning.
I guess this is
normal for you now.
This is all day for me. But yes. So I worked on my S's, and here I am in the seat. And every single time that I emphasize my S, it tends to, bite me in the rear because then something else fails. Like, now I'm starting to say my T's weird. Now I'm starting to
and you start thinking about it. Yeah.
Thinking about it. Now I'm taking my time when I talk, which I think a lot of people should do sometimes. Take your time when you're talking.
See, and I have that problem too. I talk fast because I have a lot to say. It's as simple as that. But it's brutal for you growing up that they made you like stay after school for speech pathology.
So I went somewhere else to a different school.
For us growing up, it was they'd call us out of class. So for then like 45 minutes, an hour, you'd go down and you have like your little small group session.
So it was during school?
It was during school, which was cool.
I'd have been all
whenever you'd miss class. But then you'd have to like go back to class and everyone would be like, oh, where were you at? And like, turns out my parents didn't teach me right, and I can't say my R's.
Hey, where were you at? Oh, you can't say your R's. Yeah, but you were in math class for 45 minutes.
Yeah, but like I didn't even know I couldn't say my R's until like third grade. Like they had to tell me, they're like, no, you're not saying this right. And I'm like, you sure?
Hey, mom is not with an R. It's not Ron. That's John.
Yeah.
So, gosh, that's funny. I feel like parents, too, should do a better job of teaching their kids comebacks. Like comebacks that don't cause a lot of harm, but like really, really tear down your bully, right? We were talking about that on my patio a couple of weekends ago because, oh gosh, I don't remember what we were talking about, but it had something to do with like, oh, you're either getting made fun of it was glasses, wearing glasses. So when my mom was growing up, she got called Four Eyes. And I'm like, see, my kids, if they ever have glasses, which I don't know if they will, because Ashley doesn't wear glasses, but I don't know if it's all genetics or something just weird happens and all of a sudden, so you don't have 20/20 vision. But if my kids ever have that problem, I'm going to give them like 5 really good comebacks to go to school with. Like I'm gonna write them all down.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Says right there.
maybe 6 then. 6 so that you can say the comeback and then throw the punch. No, comebacks that won't cause bodily harm, but will just completely tear them down as an individual.
That's cold-blooded.
And then if they get sent to the office, I'll pound them out. Like yeah, nice work. You got them. You really hurt them on the inside.
Yeah, maybe you do need to talk to a therapist. What's going on over here?
This is just how I am.
No, you've just been sitting here for the past like 12 hours, just like, man, I'm gonna have the best comeback for he takes that baseball from me next time. Like, he's never gonna see it coming.
I'm gonna be a savage.
I'm gonna tear him down as an individual.
Yeah,
cold-blooded, man.
Yeah. Not like anything like too harsh, but like harsh enough to be like, you should reassess your life choice.
Not like your mother doesn't love you, but like
but like you're adopted.
Okay, yeah. No, I can get behind that. Yeah, I can get behind that a little bit.
Maybe it's not that harsh either. I'll think of, by the end of the show, I'm going to think of at least one, or I'll look one up and I'll be like, that's a good one.
I just like to throw this out there here before we switch topics.
This is how it always goes on a normal day for Damon and I. We talk about things.
Yeah, and I was just going to get into that. I know I said like you should punch your bullies, but if you're a kid out there who is listening, I do not condone physical violence. Coffee and Cream does not condone physical violence. You did not get that advice from me. Let's just throw that out there. There's a disclaimer. Let's keep our lawyers happy. I don't know if we have lawyers, but let's keep them happy and just say Coffee and Cream, Elijah Herbal specifically, does not condone physical violence in the face of bullying. Just check that one off there.
Right. Well, I did feel like...
Wait, really fast. Speaking of, should we, like, it feels a little disingenuous to call the show Coffee and Cream right now.
Why?
A little bit. Because
I'm the coffee.
You're the coffee. I was going to say, like, I always thought that was a bit of a reference to you and Damon, you know, and there could not be any less.
Into what?
There could not be any less melanin in this room. You know what I'm talking about. There's no melanin whatsoever in this room.
I have no clue.
This is the cream and sugar show right now.
The cream and sugar? No, I'm still the coffee. I'm the energy. So that was the whole
That's
point.
fair. That's fair.
Okay,
yeah, this is
I'm
about
the caffeine, and he was the good mixer that makes coffee good, right?
Oh my gosh, it's
because I not a lot of people, at least people that have good taste buds, like my dad doesn't have good taste buds. He just drinks black coffee. Not for that. Like, no, I need a little bit of cream in my coffee.
I'm a black coffee guy,
Yeah,
but like so
for that.
This show is called Coffee and Cream, and it could have been called, say, Vodka Red Bull. Like, you're the energy, you're the Red Bull.
Mm-hmm.
Damon's the mixer that makes it go down and makes it fun.
He does like clear alcohol. Yeah.
Does he?
Mm-hmm. That's what he drinks.
Good insight.
Yeah. I feel like more of a tequila guy, though. Right, Shane?
Because iron sharpens iron.
Well, so does that mean he likes them both? Just enough?
I thought about it.
He's thought about it there.
Yeah, I'm sure you thought about it at least once or twice.
So has a phone call here.
No, do we? I don't think so.
I'm checking the phone lines here. I'm not seeing anything.
Oh, Matt, you can call in anytime, though. 888-638-4876. Yep, that's probably true. So, like I said, this is how it always goes, EH. It's, we think we're going to talk about something, and then something else comes up, and we just don't end up talking about it.
I mean, it was gold. It was absolute gold.
And that's how the segments normally turn out, right? We just try to be relatable to all those out there. But something that I heard yesterday, and it was passed along to me from a listener. He said, "Hey, check out this podcast because there's a Minnesota media member that is already counting out Nebraska in week 1 against Minnesota, essentially saying like we don't have to worry too much about their pass game." And I'm like, okay, like I'll go ahead and do that. So did that last night, and I was listening to it, and it took me 3 or 4 listens. I'm going to go back to being slow. I had to listen to Jokic speak in the postgame about 3 or 4 times. So I had to take this about 3 or 4 times. And excuse me, I was like, why? I'm not too worried about like the fact that they're saying like, oh, Nebraska won't have a good pass game because that's just fuel to the fire for Nebraska going into that matchup. But what I did like think was weird was they already skipped to Drake May. When they were talking about it, it was, we're waiting for Drake May in week 3. Like, that's who our secondary is most worried about. Ask any coach, that's not what you're worried about. Like, you're worried about the first game, then you're worried about the second game, and then you're worried about the third game. But I want to get your thoughts when we come back after the break on those things, because
I have thoughts.
There's not one point in time where sitting in this chair that I would tell you that I'm not worried about Callie McManus. I'm not worried about Mordecai. I'm not worried about JJ or whoever else is in the Big Ten. Because we're talking about a Big Ten opponent. Like, it's not like, hey, we're talking about a non-con, so, hey, I'm talking about another non-con. I'm not worried about it. Mm-hmm. This affects if you're going to win the Big Ten West or not. So, stick around. We'll get into that next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Or as Elijah Herbal would say, coffee and sugar.
Cream and sugar. Cream and sugar.
No, I'm still the coffee. It's coffee and cream in the morning.
I'm not sure you can call me the sugar.
Coffee and cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. DB out today, so Elijah in.
I don't think I've worked the poll enough to be called sugar just yet.
No.
Gosh,
No, is that?
now I'm trying to think, like, because you wouldn't be like espresso, because I feel like we are. Is Mike Sautter the espresso, Shane?
That is not true.
I don't know. He is. He goes off every now and then. Maybe we'll
It's
ask him later on in the
unbelievable.
show. It is. It honestly is. Mike Sautter still thinks he could take me down in a wrestling match with a or recovering from knee surgery. He couldn't do that if he were healthy.
He could maybe take you down, but then he'd have to go for another knee surgery. Love you, Mike, if you're listening.
No,
Clyde,
no,
that's
you
a
don't have
song.
to suck up to Mike. Mike is his own man. He's probably just hanging out with his dog right now, waiting to come on. Yeah, I know, Mike. I hear you too.
I don't know.
We'll get a few of those today.
Oh man, you're gonna put me on the spot.
Maybe once or twice. This again
Sounds about right.
This is Shane all day, every day, putting drops.
Oh yeah,
a lot
no
of drops.
doubt, no doubt.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
No doubt.
Over on Hail Varsity, I pick like one new drop and I try it out, and Schmitty goes, never play that again.
Yep, no, Shane doesn't care. He does what he wants over there in his little doghouse. Right, Shane?
I would agree, Damon.
No, I'm not Damon.
I don't think it is.
You don't think what is?
Feel like you're going back to square one.
Yeah, that's about where I'm
it's
about
tough.
to take
I
you.
don't know.
let's go back to
So
square
you're saying
one.
I played too many drops?
No, I said
Shame on me.
you just run the show.
Well, you know what it's got to be.
It's got to be touchdown, touchdown, touchdown.
And
I like
football
that.
season.
That's a good drop.
Brian Edwards. Yeah, we talked to him yesterday.
Well, you know what we run, don't
he
we?
liked +9, and that +9 did not hit for the Heat.
No.
I took -9 in our steak and a beer bet yesterday. Hail Varsity Radio.
That's a lot of points.
Oh, you're playing at altitude after that grueling 7-game series. We'll get into that later. I think we need to get back into Jeff Sims, but yeah, no. The 9, it worried me at the end, but now young Connor Clark owes me a steak and a beer. So
that doesn't sound too shabby. Okay, so the quarterback situation that we were talking about going into break it's interesting in itself because there are less bodies in the room after Smothers hit the portal. So now it's Sims, it's Harburg, it's Purdy, and then some other new faces. Potentially.
Eli Woke from an Ole Miss, like a walk-on transfer.
But like, how much does that like really fill your room? Maybe it does a lot. Maybe it doesn't.
Big body.
The good news is, let's just lay this out. I'm a big proponent of you don't need a lot of depth at the quarterback position. It's not like, your secondary. It's not like your line. One guy plays, and until one guy gets hurt, one guy plays. You don't rotate more times than not, right? You don't rotate. You have that ability with Harburg, but Sims can do everything that Harburg can do. So because of that, that's why I don't fault anybody that hits the portal, because they're looking for a situation to play. You're not going to get a lot of that if you are third, even second on most lists, but that's just me I'm off my soapbox now, Elijah. You can kick it over and say, Andrew, stop stepping up there. We don't need to do that anymore.
Well, there is, I think the importance of the quarterback position, especially in a conference like the Big Ten, is having a 2 deep. You need to have one guy.
Yeah, I'm good with 2.
One that's your guy, a second guy that you can rely on.
Honestly, I'm good with 3.
I mean,
I think
I go
3
back
is the number nowadays.
I'm just going back through my Rolodex of Husker seasons, and I can't remember the last time that the starting quarterback for Nebraska started all 12 games. I think maybe it was 1 year Tommy Armstrong did it. I don't know. He didn't, because he got knocked out of that Ohio State game. You always had Riker Fife come in. Like Nebraska football, and they've been a little unlucky there that it's happened every single season. But Nebraska fans at least need to plan on next season based on recent history that Jeff Sims is not going to start every single game.
That's a rarity, though, in football, that Nebraska holds a feat like that. If that is indeed true, we don't have the stats in front of us, but if that is true and based on your historic knowledge, I'm going to go with it. That's not common.
I mean, there's factors to look at there where Nebraska's offensive line the past couple of years has been a problem that you can look at in terms of quarterback injuries, how Adrian Martinez played the game, how Tommy Armstrong played the game going back, how Taylor Martinez played the game. Like, these guys weren't afraid to stick their nose in, you pick up a knock here and there. It happens in football. I'm not guaranteeing you that Jeff Sims is going to miss a game next year, but that's just kind of how it goes with the quarterback position in the Big Ten. Is you're going to get knocked up. There's a lot of mean dudes on defensive lines in the Big Ten. At some point in the season, you're going to pick up a knock. Are you going to be able to play through that? That's another question. But I think having a second guy that you can at least be comfortable to come in for a game or 2 in a season is very important in the Big Ten. But I'm with you in terms of the 3rd and 4th guy, 5th guy in the depth chart.
I'm not too worried if they go to the portal and get somebody, or if they're like, hey, we got to get somebody out of this class just to fill a spot. Like, I'm just not too worried about that, and I don't think Coach Rule is either.
Well, I think there's something different about the Husker football team this year. Whenever you hear Matt Rule talk his plans for the offense, it's going to be the first time in a while that I don't believe the offense, the most important player, is going to be the quarterback. At least in Matt Rule's ideal offense. He doesn't want the guy that the offense, like the be-all, end-all of the offense, to be the quarterback. And that's a stark departure from what Scott Frost ran around here. And I think, as you mentioned, Minnesota fans talking about not being worried about Jeff Sims, I think that's going to be something they're going to have to adjust to as well. That at Nebraska, it's like, look at Michigan. I'm not saying J.J. McCarthy's not a good quarterback, but he's not the most important player in that offense. Like, whenever you look at Michigan, you don't say, well, we got to make sure J.J. McCarthy doesn't beat us. That's what I think Matt Rule's goal is moving forward for this Husker team. Is it's not going to be other teams and other fans saying, you know what, we can't let Jeff Sims beat us. That's how it was with Nebraska in the past couple of years. Last year's Casey Thompson, can't let him beat us. Adrian Martinez, that dude can do it all. He can run, he can throw. You can't let him beat us. That's not what Matt Rule wants for his offense, at least based on what I hear from him. I don't think he wants it to be an offense where if the quarterback has a bad day, your offense has a bad day. He wants other guys in that offense to pick up the strain, namely, I think of the offensive line, the running back position, the offense as a whole is going to be much more of a cohesive unit rather than what you see a lot of places in college football, which is we're going to get the ball in the hands of our best player and we're going to let him take over a game. I don't think that's what Matt Rule wants moving forward.
Yeah, and I think to add to your point, that all extends further if you have other spots on the field that are just completely dominant. And because J.J. McCarthy, as much as he could take over a game, you look at Minnesota and you're like, well, defensively, they're, unbelievable. And then, up front, they're unbelievable, which allows Blake Corum and Edwards to be unbelievable. But I would say, yeah, if you're looking from an offensive stance, like, who's going to shut me down? I'm worried about those running backs.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to focus on them more than I'm going to focus on JJ. So you bring up a good point with that. But in regards, outside of just comparing it that way, how would you react to what I gave you going into the break when I said, hey, somebody out there is talking about how Nebraska isn't a team that they're worried about throwing the football in week 1. Nebraska won't scare you throwing the football. Jeff Sims is a guy that doesn't have a lot of talent because his numbers don't show it, which that right, we can address that first. That right there is a skewed stat to begin with because he was injured and his stats are very limited. It's a small sample size. And he was also playing in a completely different conference than what he's playing in now. So how much you can look at it from the stance of maybe passing doesn't matter too much, right? Maybe you should worry about the run game, but he can also sling it too. But your thoughts to all of those things?
Well, I'm with you in terms of it's dumb to overlook a conference opponent, especially in week 1. Like, oh, like this dude's not going to beat us with his arm. You don't know what the hell Matt Rule's offense is going to look like next year. Don't fool yourself, Minnesota fans. Like, if you think PJ Fleck isn't sitting here going like, if he's not a little bit worried about what Nebraska's going to roll out with week 1, he's a psycho person. We already know PJ Fleck's a little bit of a psycho person, but he's going to be worried because you don't know what Nebraska's offense is going to look like next season. You don't know how Jeff Sims is going to respond to being in a new system. Yeah, you can look at the film at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's offense is not what Nebraska's offense is going to be. Simply put, it's different pieces, different coaching staff, completely different. So I think, it's one thing if you look at Iowa's offense and say, I'm not worried about them beating us through the air. That's one thing. You have recent history. It's the same offensive coordinator. You're going to have a similar scheme. There's some different weapons in Iowa City, but if you say that, I can at least say, okay, you can back that up with evidence. For Nebraska, where's the evidence that Jeff Sims, aside from his stats at Georgia Tech, which as I laid out,
right,
not the best barometer, where can you look at that and say, Jeff Sims, he's not a concern to beat us with his arm.
And to add to your point with Matt Rule, like where in Matt Rule's repertoire do you see that you can't win by throwing the football? Like, yeah, we know he likes to run it, but let's go back to even just Temple when he had PJ Walker. Like, that dude, he was a baller.
But like the scheme opened things up for Temple as well. They're running the ball down everybody's throat. They're physical. You got to bring a safety down into the box to be ready for that run game. And you know what? When you got one-on-one coverage with a single high safety, it's a lot easier for a quarterback to break you down and beat you that way.
That dude's a baller.
PJ Walker? Oh yeah, PJ Walker was a baller. So I struggle to believe that like Nebraska's not going to go what they've done the past couple years, line up in shotgun, run a passing combo and say our receivers are going to beat your defensive backs and our quarterback is going to put the ball in the money. That's not what Nebraska's offense is going to be like.
Because Matt Rule is like, he's his own person.
If Matt Rule's offense is fully what he wants it to be this season, it's going to be play action. It's going to be RPO. You're going to get 7 yards of separation on your wide receiver. Jeff Sims is going to be making easier throws because that defense is going to have to respect the running game. So like, it's crazy to me that somebody's already making that assumption that, Nebraska's passing attack is going to beat you. It's so much deeper than what Jeff Sims is and what the talent is. Like, Matt Rule wants to scheme open passing attack.
It's all about who's open, right? And based on what you said, play action. What do you do after play action? You can either run, you can throw. What do you do in RPO? You can either run or you can throw. Like, Matt Rule opens himself up and this team up to so many different things because he doesn't leave anything to chance, right? So he's not just going to keep it with one option. He's going to give himself every opportunity, or not just himself, but his team, his quarterback, to make a play. And whether that's a 5-yard pass or whether that's a 40-yard pass, he's going to open up a place to make a play. And so, I know there's going to be critics out there all off season. Again, skipping past a conference opponent, skipping over Nebraska as a passing offense, skipping right to week 3.
We talk about Nebraska every single day. We don't even know what the offense is going to look like.
Mike Schaeffer up next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio, covering Nebraska football and recruiting for 24/7 sports. Here is Mike J. Schaeffer.
Yeah, that's a grown-ass man right there.
Mike Schaeffer.
I don't know. There could be bacon involved.
Mike Schaeffer.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks, Brian Edwards, for me.
Here is Mike Schaeffer.
Here's the pitch from Bauman. Swung on, and there's a high fly ball. Deep left center field. Way back there. Home run, Arias. beyond the Orioles pen and into the Guardians bullpen. A mammoth shot off the bat of Arias.
I see what you did there, Shane. I see you. Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. Damon Benning out today. Elijah Herbal in. Andrew Rogers here as well. Mike Schaeffer, big Guardians fan. So that's why Shane threw in a nice Cleveland Guardians cut there to welcome in our first guest on a Friday. There's Mike Schaeffer. He looks as dashing as ever. What's up, Mike?
How we doing, guys?
Mike, did you shave your beard?
I did, yeah.
Looks
I
good.
trimmed it.
It looks good.
There's still hair on the face. But yeah,
yeah, you're right.
It's
words.
The least amount of hair on my face in like 4 years. So
yeah, Michael Severe was getting after me on Twitter yesterday because I had a very childish beard growing, and I said, well, I will be shaving it because I have engagement photos tonight, so it will all go away. But yeah, I did look like a 15-year-old boy starting to grow facial hair. So I'm not as fortunate as you, Mike.
Well, I mean, when I was 15, I basically already had this. So it's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, it's unfair.
No, great power comes great responsibility, all those cliches.
I had one friend back in 8th grade who had a full beard as an 8th grader. I am talking like what Schaef's got right now. That's what he had in 8th grade. And I went to a Lincoln Southeast high school game with him back in the day. And he didn't bring like any student ID of sorts. And
what do you have, the birth certificate like in bench warmers?
No,
I am low.
No, he didn't have enough money to get into the game because he brought enough for a student ticket, not enough for an adult ticket. And the people at the gate are like, dude, like, no, you're clearly like an adult. Like, you need to pay full price for this game.
He's in 8th grade.
He's like, I'm telling you guys, I'm 14 years old. I need to get into this game. I only have 5. I don't have 7. Like, what do you want me to do here? So like eventually some nice people online gave him $2 more.
They literally made him pay $7.
They made him pay $7. No one believed him whenever he said, I'm an 8th grader.
Imagine taking your job that seriously at a gate. Is it a high school football game?
High school football game.
At a high school football game. Like, I'm just like, yeah, you can go in. That's why they probably don't have me manning the gates. Now, speaking of high school, though, Schaef, you were out at some high school fields this week. I know you were at
I hit West Side on Wednesday.
Yeah, West Side. And, I guess I wanted to ask, like, just kind of general stuff. What were you taking in? Who were you taking advantage of seeing? And just your overall thoughts on what it's like being out there.
I mean, a lot of it was just it's an easy way to see a bunch of people at one time. And so you're just kind of collecting information that way. I wanted to see if Caleb Benning had set official visits. I wanted to see what Christian Jones was going to do during camp season. And then West Side being West Side, there's about a half dozen other people we're talking to besides obviously the big names. I mean, I talked to both of the Rezaks, pretty much learned that Teddy Rezak is locked in with Notre Dame. I mean, he removed all doubt on that one. Preston Okafor is a name I think to watch during camp season here. He's going to have an opportunity to work out for Nebraska. I think he's kind of one of those guys that could be a senior offer guy, could be a camp guy, one of those things, could be a gray shirt or something like that. Preston Okafor, someone to keep an eye on. Keenan Cotton is another one of the Cotton family, really talented sprinter. They're all known for their track ability. I mean, I think all of his older brothers have gone to Arkansas, but he could end up playing football. I mean, he's a pretty interesting athlete in his own right. Plays wide receiver, defensive back for that West Side team. So, I mean, a lot of it was just kind of learning and seeing some of the new people, catching up the information that I could on some of the guys going through the recruiting stuff right now. And there's just a lot of talent at Omaha West Side. And it kind of kicks off, I think, every Wednesday I'm going to be in Omaha at some different schools. So just kind of kicks off my own little, not quite Mike Sautter-esque tour, but, a Mike Schaeffer tour. A much more mellow, less in your face about it tour of high school events here for the month of June.
Mike, as we get geared up for the 2024 high school or 2023, high school football season, like as you're going through all the Omaha schools this summer, which schools are you really intrigued to see? Because whenever I look at football in the state of Nebraska the past couple of years, it's been West Side, Bellevue West, Gretna, and everybody else. I don't think it's necessarily going to be a different story this year, but what schools in Omaha are you going to be watching for as you're on this tour in terms of who can make a legitimate run in a state title this year?
Yeah, it's going to be really tough because obviously, started with West Side and they have a ton of talent. You're you're looking at, okay, where are they maybe the lightest? Well, they're going to have to get better not better necessarily in the trenches, but they're going to have to match what they've been able to do. And they have some younger guys, I think, stepping into some key roles up front. And then you're looking at a school like Omaha North, and they're built in the trenches. They've got, a lot of guys that were good players as sophomores that were getting some varsity looks that are now, upperclassmen. And so that change is always a big thing. So I think Omaha North is going to be maybe one of the most interesting schools, not out of those three that you've already listed. I'll see Millard South for the first time next week, so I'm somewhat curious about that. Millard North is always sort of intriguing to me. You guys are a little bit younger than I am, but Millard North was kind of a powerhouse back in the early 2000s. And so, and then they won a state title in, what was it? 2015. I think they won one in 2013. And I think they won again in 2015. I mean, so they, every decade they've had their share of competing as well. You have Fred Petito there. So there's just different schools that certainly I'm going to be kind of keeping an eye on. And then of course there's just a lot of in-state talent in the Metro right now that's worth keeping an eye on for recruiting purposes as well. There's a lot at North. There's interesting guys kind of all over. So, I think that I think it's going to be a very fruitful summer in terms of just in-state recruiting and learning about some of these people. I think those camps Nebraska's running, I think we'll see a fair amount of in-state younger guys at those too.
Great segue into this next question, Schaeffer. We're talking to Mike Schaeffer at Mike J. Schaeffer on Twitter, Nebraska football and recruiting for 24/7 Sports. Crystal ball on Caleb Pyfrom. We know how the last one panned out, but why do you feel confident in this pick? And what's your statement to the skeptics out there that don't want to take this submission seriously because of what happened with Raiola?
I think the last crystal ball was actually Daniel Kalen, but
my apologies.
No, you're good.
You hit home with it.
You
get it right because that was right after he decommitted, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you did. Yep. I want to give him credit there. He was on top of that.
Well, I mean, I don't know that I deserve that much credit. The blueprint was like right
laid out.
It's not like we were driving through heavy traffic on that one. But yeah, Caleb Pyfrom, I think Nebraska's done a really nice job recruiting him. He's visited multiple times. He's here for the spring game. He's here for multiple practices. He's having his first official visit this weekend. I think he feels very comfortable with what things would be at Nebraska. I think the biggest thing is he's just not quite at a point where he's ready to make a decision, but there's such a big lead between Nebraska and the teams that have offered him. Now, that being said, he does have a mom down in South Carolina. He is going to go camp at Clemson. I would imagine if Clemson came through with an offer, that's going to be a real changing thing. But right now, as it sits, with Nebraska's biggest competition being Minnesota and Illinois, a couple schools he hasn't visited yet, I just think that he is going to have a good weekend here for the official visit weekend. Really hope we hear about this pickleball matchup that may or may not have instigated between Caleb Pyfrom and Matt Rule. And then, I think that having Daniel Kalen and those, he was talking to me about the Pell West guys. He's like, yeah, they're not going to be there on that visit, but I've been talking with them a little bit. And so these guys talk. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if he's back in Lincoln, again in the month of June. I don't know that the commitment's going to happen right away right now. But I'd be kind of surprised if we get to the start of his senior year and he's not either focused primarily on just a couple schools or if he isn't committed at that point. And I really feel like Nebraska has a great shot there.
Talking with Mike Schaeffer here. It's Coffee and Cream. And Mike, whenever you look at some of the top recruits in the state of Nebraska, obviously Daniel Kalen in the boat now. You also have Ashton Murphy, who committed a couple of months ago. When you look at some of the remaining guys, Carter Nelson, Davon Hall, Isaiah McMorris, even Caleb Benning, a guy we're very familiar with here on this show, Pyfrom. What does Nebraska's hit rate need to be on those in-state guys for this first recruiting cycle to be considered a success for Matt Rule for his in-state guys, trying to lock down that 500-mile radius?
Yeah, if you asked me this question a month ago, I would have told you that I think 5 out of 9, because they've offered 9 guys, would be a really good, for them, because that means you're getting Carter Nelson, you're getting Caleb Benning, you're getting Caleb Pyfrom, and you're adding that to an Ashton Murphy. But now when you have Daniel Kalen, and then you're grabbing one of the Bell West guys. Now, as you have Daniel Kalen in the fold, your chances of finishing even something like 7 out of 9 with Rizak and Eric Ingwerson committed elsewhere. I mean, that seems like it's at least a possibility. I don't think it's the most likely scenario, but it's now a possibility. And so I think their chances of Isaiah McMorris and Davon Hall went up. I don't know that Nebraska would end up with both Bell West wide receivers. If I had to guess, McMorris seems more likely than Hall at this point in time. But I think that they're going to walk away from this with at least 50%, if not more than that. And I just I think that's really good. They got here in December. They had to kind of reverse the culture of how people felt, at least in-state players felt about the school of Nebraska. They still have to reverse that culture. I mean, it needs to go for more than just it's where you were born. You were born into it, so you should go to Nebraska, to giving these kids a reason who haven't seen a winning season since they were, pre-middle school in some cases. Like, give them a reason that they could be proud of being from Nebraska, that they want to play for Nebraska. And this staff knows that. And I mean, so do the previous staffs. But I just think there's such a swell amongst the fan base that, oh, he's from Omaha, he should go to Nebraska. Like, nah, I mean, they got to win games. And so you can only take care of what you can take care of in the calendar as it falls. But I think they've done a nice job in state considering where things were as they arrived. And the relationships that they've built so far. And I think Daniel Kaelin is going to help move them to the next level.
Schaefer, let's take one step up. We got to talking about this week, and I want you to exclude early enrollees when I ask this question.
Yep.
But I want to talk about guys we haven't seen yet. Who would you say in the 2023 class is going to be the fastest to help this team?
All right, I'm going to exclude Tristan Alvano because it feels like one of those cheat answers.
Right.
And,
okay.
I could just answer that and not say anything else, and
that'd be great.
Fine,
that'd be great.
Well, I'm gonna remove that one because that feels too easy. One of these wide receivers is going to have to contribute. We don't know who. Obviously, Malachi Coleman, Jaden Doss are at the higher end of the pool. Demetrius Bell is intriguing, and then I look at guys like Bryce Turner, Jalen Lloyd, and Jeremiah Charles, and I look at what Baylor did, and I'm not trying to say that any of these guys are going to be Tyquan Thornton, but Tyquan Thornton played as a freshman. He's now with the Patriots. He played as a freshman for Matt Rule. I think he had like somewhere between 15 to 20 catches and a few hundred yards, and was kind of a big play threat, once or twice a game. Maybe, and Malachi Coleman fits into this too, maybe one of these sort of elite speed track guys. While they may not be the purest route runners yet and have the best hands, you can get them on the field in a gadget type formation or in a specific type formation to utilize that speed where maybe they get lost against one of these corners and Jeff Sims can hit them down the field and you can stretch the field that way. And you do that, 2 times a game or 1 time a game, whatever it is. So somebody from that wide receiver group, I'm not smart enough to tell you which one. I obviously think the world of Riley Van Poppel. I think he's a really, really good player. He's going to, in my mind, take the Garrett Nelson path where he's just going to outwork pretty much everyone, whatever limitations he might have in terms of, what you can get out of the rest of his body athletically that isn't already there. I think there's some people who think he might be a little maxed in that regard. He'll break that. I mean, I think he's a very, very talented individual that's going to have, a good career with Nebraska. And I think it's going to start pretty early. Eric Fields is someone that I think can play special teams. I don't know that his body's at the point where he's a Big Ten linebacker, but he certainly can help you in your coverage unit. So that's someone I would keep an eye on.
Boy, can he explode though?
He's
absolutely explode.
That's the thing that we're seeing out of so much of what they're recruiting in this 2024 class and what they recruited in 2023 when they got here. I mean, the film with these guys, explosion is a word that you would use because so many of them have this like track background where they're triple jumpers, where they're long jumpers, where you have to physically explode to be competitive, and that works with the offensive line and too, because if you're throwing shot or if you're a wrestler, like explosion is part of it. You have to be able to explode your hips in order to throw the shot put or the discus. You have to be able to explode with your lower body to be able to wrestle. So explosions, I think, the perfect catch-all term for what they try to recruit. There's a fair amount of it that's still showing up here as they finish, their high school careers and their high school education before they come out to Nebraska. But they've got a bunch on campus and they've got more coming.
And another name I just want to add to that list, I feel like he's flown under the radar. A guy from Pierce, South Dakota, Jason Majacek. He's a guy that physically looks the part. I think he's probably got some work to do in his game, but I wonder what he can bring in a freshman season.
Yeah, well, he played for a 2-time state championship team.
Yeah.
A really good quarterback that's actually going to play at Ohio State in place of Dylan Raiola, the guy that they went out and recruited. So I'm with you there.
Yeah. Lincoln Keenholz is that kid. And with Jason, like a guy that does not look like he is 17, 18 years old, looks much older than that. But Mike, I really like this question. I want to turn it to the class of 2024. And it's hard to project these sort of things. But whenever you look at the guys Nebraska's in 2024, uncommitted guys, which of those guys do you think would make the most immediate contribution at Nebraska should they be in the boat?
Man, so what gets hard about that is we haven't seen this staff and how they operate. So I'm assuming freshmen are going to be able to play. But then here's the thing. If you have a good crop of 2023s playing and you got a younger roster, it makes it harder for those incoming 2024s to be able to play as well. But to sort of answer your question, I mean, whatever they end up at running back, I think that person would have an opportunity too, whether that's Kewan Lacey or if they're able to get a Nate Frazier, certainly. There's a kid from Bishop Gorman whose name I'm forgetting. He's visiting at the end of June. So I apologize. That's the best I can do off the top of my head with running backs. But I would think that would be a position. Certainly you would keep an eye on any kind of like edge guys that they're able to bring in. Like I don't know, exactly how it would work, but if they're able to bring in, what we would consider to be an explosive, even if it's a raw kind of edge player that could play, I wouldn't be shocked if the staff uses more freshmen for their 4-game, that they're able to just get those guys reps. You get them out against Louisiana Tech or, whoever Nebraska's got on the schedule where they're in an opportunity where you can play some of the younger guys. So I think there's certain positions where there's just lopsided depth where some young guys would have that opportunity, but there's no immediate name that I have for you right now. Like I wouldn't say there's anybody committed there. I'm just like, oh yeah, that guy's going to play for sure. So I think even with the targets that they have coming in this weekend and the rest of the month, I mean, a guy like Carter Nelson who would be a huge commitment for you. That's probably a 2-year down the line project. So some of it, when you recruit this explosion, when you recruit this athleticism, they still have to learn how to play football. Like they don't come in maybe as advanced in that aspect, but their athleticism is so good that that's the sort of thing you can't develop. You can teach a guy how to run the routes you want him to. You can't teach him 10-2 in the 100-meter dash.
I think the name you were looking for, Schaefer, was Micah Kaapana, if I'm correct.
Yes.
Gorman.
One of the tricks of the trade is to pretend to forget names you can't pronounce. You don't have to do exactly that.
Got it. Okay, fair enough. Hey, curiosity question for you, because we got into this just before we started your segment, and it was something that was sent to me, a podcast of a Minnesota writer talking about how Minnesota as a secondary shouldn't be worried about Nebraska on offense throwing the football. And I came in with like that's interesting, because why would you skip over a Big Ten West opponent over anything else? Like whether you think that they're going to be dangerous or not, they're already preparing, I should say, for Drake May in week 3. Media people, not the team, obviously, but media people. And so I wanted to ask, how would you grade Nebraska's pass offense, where it stands right now, heading into week 1?
I mean, without, I don't know. I mean, it's tough, like a C minus. Like, because
do you think it's a fair assessment and a point made then by?
Well, my counter would be, because I have talked to at least one media member from Minnesota who would tell you the biggest weakness of the Gophers on the roster is in their secondary. So it doesn't exactly like it's strength on weakness here. I mean, it seems more like it's weakness versus weakness. I guess one thing that you can kind of bet on in a weakness versus weakness is athleticism. And Nebraska does have athletes at wide receiver, and they have an athlete at quarterback. And Jeff Sims has a good arm. If he has time that he can throw, I mean, it may not always be the most accurate. And here's the thing, like Billy Kemp, I don't think he's going to be Samari Toure. I don't think he's going to be Trey Palmer. I think he's going to be pretty tough for Big Ten defensive backs. I mean, that's a veteran who knows how to sit down in a coverage. It's a veteran that knows how to, break tackles and do a little after the catch. Not the biggest guy. I don't think he's going to have 200-yard games ever. but I wouldn't be surprised if he's a menace for secondaries in the Big Ten. And I don't know. It's kind of laughable to me. It's the Big Ten West. I don't think you can look past anybody. And I don't think you can look past anybody's, position grouping. It's all kind of bad. I mean, right? So I would be a little surprised if Minnesota is like, yeah, we're not worried about Nebraska's passing game. Because I think that's more likely and more effective than a run game with an offensive line that you don't know what you're going to get out of, and a running back that's never really done it if it's Gabe Ervin. So I would think the route for Nebraska to stay in that game is going to be through the air a little bit too.
I think it's funny because it's one thing if you say, like, you can overlook Iowa's passing attack. That's one thing to say. You have at least recent history and results to back it up on. I don't think you have either history with Nebraska or history with Matt Rule where you can back up that argument to say you don't have to worry about Nebraska's passing attack.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly agree with that. I don't know that there's much there. And obviously, if you're basing it off of what you saw with Chubba Purdy in Memorial Stadium last year, then yeah, I get it. Like, that version of Nebraska wasn't going to tear up Minnesota through the air, but there's no reason anyone should think that's what it's going to look like. It's an entirely different offensive coordinator, offensive philosophy. And, if Chubba Purdy's playing in Minnesota on that Thursday night to open the season, it's going to be a lot of upset fans. I'm wondering where this thing is headed already in week 1.
Hey, Schaeffer, I'm going to get you out of here on this. Yeah, I heard this question the other day, and so I want to present it to you too, because I think it's fitting for not really knowing what is going to happen under the first year Matt Rule. Where is the biggest drop off for this football team between the quality of starters and the quality of backups?
Oh, so what position on the roster?
Yeah, what position group? Like if you would think like, oh, well, like we have two really good DBs, but if they go down, oh no, this is going to be bad.
They're a top heavy team, so there's not like there's a ton of established depth everywhere. I mean, wide receivers scares the hell out of me. So that's one of the ones that, if you lose Billy Kemp and Marcus Washington, you've got Isaiah Garcia and Xavier Betts, and then what else? I mean, so that one's there. I think one that nobody really talks about, your inside linebacker room, once you get beyond Luke Reimer and Nick Henrich, you're already into John Bullock. Once you get beyond John Bullock, like it gets pretty thin really quickly at that second level. I mean, I know that this staff would love to find another linebacker that could run and plug them in, right away. I don't know how likely that is, and they're certainly going to keep anything available in the transfer portal. So those are two spots that maybe people wouldn't think of. As offensive line, you're always worried about Teddy Prohaska going down at this point because he hasn't played a full season. We know how much that's disrupted the line in the past. I just don't know what their left tackle picture would be specifically there. I think Gunnar Gatula was playing in the spring. Tyler Knack, who they just got from Utah, might take that over. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at with it. I mean, those are sort of the spots that immediately come to mind. Corner, I think, is a fair one, but they have such a good top two. And I think they like a lot of their young guys there too, that I wouldn't be as concerned. You lose Ty Robinson and Nash Hutmacher, all of a sudden you wonder about what that defensive line looks like. So yeah, it's a pretty top-heavy team. Staying healthy is going to be a big, big part of it, but building that depth throughout the year, like we talked about with those young guys, that's going to be paramount for what Matt Rule wants to do.
Schaeffer, we appreciate your time this morning. Thanks so much. We'll talk again next week.
All right, guys, have a good one. Enjoy the weekend.
You too. More CNC next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Hey, welcome back. Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. We are live from the H&H Chevrolet stage at Hail Varsity Club. Thanks for joining us wherever you find us. 590 ESPN Radio here in town. We are live on Twitter. We are live on YouTube, and you can catch that on the Hurrdat Sports or Hail Varsity Radio YouTube page. What am I forgetting here? I know I was going to say something, like in regards to where they... Oh, KFOR. We'll be on KFOR in Lincoln starting at 9 o'clock. I'm like, normally at 8:30, Andrew, you know what you're about to say, and not today. It is a Friday. We will be talking to Ben Upton. I'm missing somebody. We'll be talking to Ben Upton in the following segment. Talk all things Road to Omaha. And speaking of the Road to Omaha, College World Series kickoff party at Omaha Design Center is the opening day celebration for you. It's an outdoor pre-party experience with live DJ and yard games just 2 blocks from the stadium, premiere viewing of the game on ESPN TV inside. And guess what's in there? Air conditioning and a bathroom.
Ooh.
Those are 2 major checks in your box of things that you want to make sure are ticked off whenever you get to downtown Omaha or just the Chuck in general. Reserve your kickoff party tickets for $20 a person at omahaeventgroup.ticketleap.com. Again, that's the College World Series kickoff party at Omaha Design Center. We were just watching, we have ESPN on. Speaking of ESPN, we were watching ESPN, and one of the first headlines was Adam Silver talking about Ja Morant. You know, he came out yesterday and said there's more that has been uncovered as investigations has gone on. And I thought, oh no, like it's getting real fast for Ja Morant. Like I don't really know what to think anymore. I don't want to make any overall assumptions, but you said it during the break. It's got to be like it's a year suspension.
Adam Silver's going out and teasing a suspension
during the NBA Finals.
He's like, yeah, we could bring this to a head right now. We could suspend him. We could levy a suspension right now if we wanted to, but we don't want to take away from these 2 teams. Think about how bad this suspension is going to be, how bad they're going to throw the book at him if this suspension would take away from the NBA Finals. That's not any little 10, 15 game suspension. If that happened, it would be like, okay, we're going to talk about it for an afternoon on ESPN. We're going to move on. We'll get back to it next season. If it would be enough to take away from the NBA Finals, the biggest moment in the NBA all season, if the suspension of Ja Morant would take away from that, they're going to absolutely be throwing the book at him.
That's why I think it's going to be more. Like, I almost wonder if it's going to be more than 1 year. And whether it's, hey, the league gives you 1 year, and that's like the official like ruling at the end of the day, I'm worried that teams could take a Trevor Bauer approach with this. And Trevor Bauer was somebody that, you know, is just as talented as Ja Morant, but got caught up in some things. Now, situations are a little bit different because Bauer went to court and he had real strong accusations about that he committed a crime, although I think he was freed of that. Was he not?
The charges were dropped.
Okay, so
not
really free.
He wasn't found innocent, but
right.
I believe they found not enough evidence to convict.
But no MLB team wanted to take him. And you would think that, you know, because charges were dropped, that, you know, I'd want a guy that has an ERA below 2 most years and throws 200 plus strikeouts and is one of the best pitchers in the game. No, he's playing in Japan right now. So my worry for Ja Morant is he may be playing in Europe. Because there may be a team in the NBA that's like, it's not really worth my time. You know, we saw you, it happened once. And okay, we forgave you. We did like a minor suspension. And then it happened again. Okay, now it's like getting a little bit worse. And now we're hearing things from Adam Silver saying like, it's much worse than we thought. If the situation is much bigger and what we're blowing it out to be right now comes out to be the case, there's not going to be I shouldn't say that. I don't know of a lot of teams that are going to want to put that on their roster, whether he's the best player, one of the best young players in the game or not. Because look, baseball, you're one of the best pitchers, you're normally pitching. Basketball, you're one of the best players, you're obviously starting. But there's only 5 players on the court. Like, you could find another guy that could get you to be a successsul team. Now, they may not have the skill sets of Ja Morant, but to avoid the headache and still fill a spot, I think you can find somebody.
June 18th, by the way, is the scheduled day for Game 7. Can they wait that long?
Yes,
I think so.
Yeah, I think the only thing that would change that would be some sort of leak. If they leak out what the suspension is going to be, that would change things. But I don't think they announce it before the end of the finals. I think Adam Silver is going to stay true to his word on that. But one thing I'll come back to your point with is baseball and basketball are 2 very different sports because of one of the reasons you lay out. There's only 5 players on a basketball court.
Absolutely.
Legitimately, one player being added to a roster can take you from the 12th best team in the West to the 4th best team.
But that's what I think about with a pitcher, right? You put one really good pitcher on the team.
Like, you tell me, what's like a really, like if a baseball pitcher has a good borderline all-star season, what's their wins above replacement going to be that year?
Yeah, it wouldn't be as high as Mike Trout.
Yeah, it wouldn't be like the pitching position is a little bit different in that they can still only pitch.
It's once every 5 days.
Once every 5 days. So
But
it's different than basketball.
If you pair him though with two other really good pitchers, now you're averaging. Let's just say they get wins every time. 3 out of every 5 games you're getting wins, and so you're getting to that number.
But it doesn't come down to one player. Like I think if you add John Morant to the Pistons next season with Monty Williams, and like this is just a hypothetical, I don't think he's going to be playing next season. But if you add it to that roster, the Pistons don't have a good roster. I think the addition of John Morant takes them from a team that is going to be hoping to compete for like a bubble spot or a play-in tournament spot to a team that is going to be a legitimate, I shouldn't say contender, but they're a legitimate bona fide playoff team.
Don't get me wrong. My situation's very far-fetched.
Very
far-fetched. I get that.
I don't think there's any non-playoff team in the majors that if you added Bauer, how he was playing before the suspension, right now he's playing terribly in Japan. But before the suspension, I don't think there's any team that's outside the playoff spots in baseball that would now become a playoff team, a legitimate contender if you add one player in Trevor Bauer. And I think that's the difference in basketball. You can add one player and take a team from being not good to good. Like if you take Jokic off the Nuggets are probably a play-in tournament team.
Yeah.
They're not very good, but with that one player, it takes them from being middle of the road to the best team in the NBA this year.
Right. And I see what you're saying, but in the baseball realm of things, if you have a playoff team, adding Trevor Bauer does wonders for what you can accomplish.
And that I won't disagree with.
But it can be looked at in the same light, right? John Morant would work wonders for your team if he was there. But it's just about, do you want to take on that headache? So what I ultimately want to say my point is this. My worry isn't, hey, the suspension gives you 1 year. Like, yes, we talked about it on the show before. Like, he needs to mature. Somebody needs to help him. Somebody needs to guide him. He needs to grow up fast, right? But I worry about the other teams in the league looking down at the situation and being like, do I want to take that on? And that's just what it ultimately boils down to for me. Not to say that he wouldn't be a guy that brings you to the playoffs, because he did that with Memphis. Who did Memphis have? Dylan Brooks was there, but he was a head case in himself. But it was John Morant.
Yeah.
It was the John Morant show. So yes, 100% with you. He's a different player. He's a special talent. But Kyrie Irving was a different player and a special talent. And then he opens his mouth and all of a sudden he's one of the biggest head cases in the league because of it. So my worry isn't, hey, your actions aren't going to give you, I guess your talents aren't going to give you more opportunity, but your actions could hinder that opportunity.
If Deshaun Watson has a spot in the NFL, I think John Morant will have a spot in the NBA somewhere, but that depends on what is the suspension going to be. And if the Grizzlies decide to keep him around, does it end up being, the NBA is going to give you 1 year, but the Grizzlies are going to go indefinitely with your suspension. Like, there is so many question marks with this whole John Morant situation. I don't think we're going to see him on a basketball court anytime soon. Right. Personally,
it's pure speculation.
Because I think about whenever Adam Silver says, well, we've been covered a lot more during this investigation, and reading in between the lines sounds like he's going to throw the book at him. I wonder if that whole incident with the Pacers team bus, if you remember that story, it was the Pacers team bus, a car full of John Morant and his associates pulled up, and there's now being red lasers pointed into the Pacers team bus. As time goes on, I'm inclined to believe that John Morant is much more likely to be rolling around with a gun with a laser sight than with a laser pointer.
I'd hope not.
Like, if that comes out to be true, that John Morant was pointing a gun at the Pacers team bus, that is going to be both just a huge revelation to this whole situation of, oh my God, what is this guy doing?
Details for him.
And B, it'd make you go, whatever suspension that Adam Silver levies would be warranted, it could be lifetime at that point. And I would say, you know what, John, that's that you can't point a gun at another NBA player, let alone the whole team bus.
Yeah. Hopefully it doesn't, come to fruition that those details are, what they are. But I just hope that this is like a real eye-opening experience.
I hope he can learn from this.
Right.
Because he's going to have some time to think about it.
I think that was the hope after the first instance and then after the second instance. But if it does end up being more, I don't know. When we come back, we're going to change gears. We'll talk to Ben Upton, then we'll talk to Mike Sautter. Stick around.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Hey, welcome back. Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency, alongside Elijah Herbal in for DB. I'm Andrew Rogers. Happy to have you with us, and happy to be joined by Ben Upton now. Ben Upton is the host of the 11.7 podcast at Ben_Upton5 on Twitter. We'll be talking the Road to Omaha, all things college baseball now. Ben, good morning. I love following you on Twitter, and I'm happy that you could hop on the show this morning.
Hey, what's up? No, I appreciate you for having me on. It's the best time of the year.
Some would argue that's Christmas, but not you. Not you. It's when college baseball rolls in. So the regional stage set all begins today, Ben. Let's cover some ground here. If you had to choose the 1 seed with the easiest path to the Supers, it would be who? And if you had to pinpoint the team that got shafted, handed the toughest regional, it'd be who?
Well, the easiest regional, in my opinion, for a 1 seed is Florida. I've been saying it pretty much all week since the selection show. I just felt like UConn was not the best 2 seed, probably towards the bottom, and then you get Texas Tech as a 3 seed. And Texas Tech just really hasn't won much away from Lubbock. So I think Florida has the easiest path to win a regional. And then you look at the toughest, there's really 2 regionals that stick out. Indiana State gets matched up with a good Iowa team, a really good North Carolina team, and then Oklahoma State with Dallas Baptist and Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, and they have Oral Roberts as a 4 seed. So I think Indiana State and Oklahoma State get really tough draws in the regional.
Ben, just in terms of the regionals as a whole, should you only have one regional you can watch this season That's the only one you can watch the games from. Which one are you picking that you think is going to have the most drama, is going to have the most wall-to-wall action from seeds 1 through 4?
Oh, man. If I had to just pick one regional to watch, I would say that Arkansas regional is really intriguing. You get a good Arkansas team, and as a 2 seed, you get TCU, who just rolled through the Big 12 tournament. They're really talented, and they're playing really good ball right now. And then you get Arizona, who is that last team in this year, who probably shouldn't have been in the tournament. But let's rewind to last year when Ole Miss probably shouldn't have gotten into the tournament, and they won the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the 4 seed there, you have Santa Clara, who I think is one of the best, if not the best 4 seed in the field. They're coming from out west. They have a really good pitching staff, and they just play clean baseball. So if I had to just pick one, I would say that one.
Hey, Ben, you mentioned Oral Roberts, and that Stillwater Regional is interesting because that's the 4 seed that I think could come out of it. I like Dallas Baptist a lot. I kind of like the teams that are off the radar a bit, that aren't your normal, not just your normal colleges that you see on an everyday basis across sports, but, just kind of the off the radar teams. And those are 2 of them in that region, but I like them as the 4 seed to move on. Now, I know you like a 4 seed because with you, you're not much of a chalk guy. You just kind of like to make predictions, have some fun with it. Wright State is the one you like, correct?
It is. I'm a big believer in the Raider gang this year. And it's not just because of, how well they played this year, but they've been knocking on the door for a long time in regionals. In 2021, they were 1 out away from upsetting Tennessee in that first game of the regional. And Tennessee ended up rallying in the 9th and hitting a walk-off grand slam. And, Wright State was up by 3 runs at that point. So they've been knocking on the door for a while. They play a different style of baseball, which I think can give the teams like Indiana State, North Carolina, and Iowa maybe some hiccups because they play fast. They do a lot of hit and runs and stealing bases. And, now this year, their lineup has power for like the first time in a while. So I don't know. I think Wright State could be a really sleeper there, sitting at the 4 seed in Indiana State.
Speaking of sleepers, Ben, there's been some talk within the past week about Tulane's run to the NCAA tournament. I need to get your take. Do you like having a 19-40 team in the NCAA tournament, or do you think that's – I shouldn't call it bad for the sport. Do you think that they're taking away a more rightful spot with their automatic qualifier?
I mean, yeah, there's definitely just out there glaring that there's a team with a 19-40 record. But, at the end of the day, it's Tulane, they recruit really well, and they have a good player development system, and they played a tough non-conference schedule where, they shouldn't have been this bad, but maybe they're finally starting to click as a team. First-year head coach, and it's not like they're a team that is a super small mid-major that, doesn't recruit well and they just got hot in the tournament. Like, these are still talented guys. What I'd like to see moving forward, I'm a big believer in the AQ, the automatic qualifying tournaments, but I think there's a way you can restructure the tournaments to give a more of an advantage to the 1 and the 2 seed during the regular season, rather than the American Conference this year just had it 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5. So there wasn't really an advantage. So everybody was on an equal playing field, which in my opinion, just you can throw out the regular season at that point. Like nothing mattered.
Ben, more powerful 2 seed, Campbell or Tennessee?
Well, Tennessee, they kind of got shafted a little bit going to that Clemson regional. Clemson's won like 25 of their last 28, including 16 straight. They're playing the best baseball in the country. So Tennessee going there as a 2 seed is really, really tough. I thought they would end up somewhere like in Indiana State or Oklahoma State, one of the lower 1 seeds. More dangerous. Tennessee has more talent than pretty much anybody in the country. They just won on the road this year. But an easier path to Omaha or an easier path to the super regionals, I'd say Campbell.
Talking with Ben Upton here on Coffee and Cream, host of the 11.7 podcast. Really appreciate his time here this morning. And Ben, I want you to to get a chance here to make a bold prediction, one that you're not necessarily willing to stake your reputation on, one that you think could happen, might not be likely. What's that bold prediction for regional time that you think, you know what, maybe I'm going to be smarter than everyone else. No one else is picking this, but I think it could really happen. But that being said, I don't want to stake my reputation on it. What's your bold prediction?
I mean, I could. How much time do you have? I could bold prediction. I was looking at some of the sports books around the area and trying to figure out maybe like one game that could be a big upset today. And I think Army playing that first game of the day against Virginia, sitting at a really big underdog for anybody out there that gambles. Like, I could see Army coming out. They're really good offensively. The back end of their bullpen's not very good, but they have a couple pitchers that can get people out. And I think Army could basically set the tone for this tournament today at noon Eastern and just maybe upset Virginia there. I really do like that matchup.
That's bold.
Virginia is pitching an Army transfer against them. So, like, this lineup is really familiar with Virginia's pitcher. So I think that could be a just right off the boards, big, bold prediction, Army upsets Virginia. And then if you're looking for a team that maybe nobody, actually, I don't think really anybody is talking about, advancing out of a regional, but I'm a big Southern Miss fan, but don't sleep on Samford as the 3 seed in that Auburn regional because Samford, they won 3 games in one day to win the SoCon tournament just because of like weather and scheduling. They're a 3 seed there in Auburn, which is really close to campus for Samford. They're comfortable playing at that field, and they're a team that won the regular season SoCon. They won the tournament, and every year they're like top 2 or 3 players go and into the transfer portal and go to a Mississippi State, and Auburn, a Tennessee, a Clemson. So they've been really good the last 4 or 5 years, and like I see that as a pretty favorable regional for them. I think Samford could get out of it.
Ben, best pitching overall, the number 1 overall seed, Wake Forest. They are looked at as the most dangerous team, but if we know the curse of the overall 1 seed, it doesn't ever fare well for them. Can Wake Forest be the team that breaks that curse?
Yeah, they can. I'm going to keep saying it. I mean, a number 1 overall seed will win this tournament one year. It hasn't happened since 1999, but I think if I just keep saying it over and over again,
it'll happen
every single year. It'll eventually happen. But look, like Wake Forest, gets compared a lot to last year's Tennessee team that was, only lost like 10 games or 9 games in the regular season. They had the best pitching, they had the best offense. Well, like this year's Wake Forest team is older than that Tennessee team on the mound, much more experienced. And I think that they're a little bit more focused than what I thought Tennessee last year was. Tennessee last year was all about the media, all about the hype. They would talk trash to the other teams. They would showboat. Wake Forest has their heads screwed on straight, I think. And so I think they have a really good shot of winning it all. And a pretty fairly easy road to Omaha, considering their regional and their super regional matchups. So, yeah, I mean, I think the Demon Deacons, they're looking really good.
Ben, last thought here, about 30 seconds. We've seen a lot of future MLB stars in Omaha over the years. Give me a guy or two that you think we should be watching in this tournament, guys that you think are going to be future stars in professional baseball.
Yeah, that's an easy question. Yo-Yo Morales from Miami, an absolute superstar. He'll be an MLB guy. And then Chase Davis from Arizona, like almost a lock to be a Major League Baseball player. Just 2 guys with huge skill sets, and they're tearing it up here.
Ben, we appreciate your time this morning, man. Thanks so much. We have to talk again soon as the CWS approaches.
Absolutely. Have me back on whenever. I'm available.
I love to hear it. That's Ben Upton, host of the 11.7 podcast, at Ben_Upton5 on Twitter. My dad, graduate of EIU, Eastern Illinois University. They are a 4 seed. They were the OVC champions. They have to face Vandy in the first game, and then they either have to face the winner of, or the loser, of Oregon and Xavier. Without crushing his dreams too much, Elijah, not sure it's going to go well for Go Big Blue.
I'll be a Panthers fan.
When we come back, Mike Sautter here on Coffee and Cream.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Oh, yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
Mike Sautter.
I would agree, Damon.
Mike Sautter.
Yeah.
Mike Sautter.
Oh, man, you're going to put me on the spot.
Mike Sautter.
Top of the hour here on Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. Elijah Herbal, Andrew Rogers, Shane Schillerberg in on Friday. DB out today. We are live from the H&H Chevrolet stage at Hail Varsity Club. 9 o'clock means we are now on in Lincoln. Turn the dial over to KFOR. You can catch us there. In town, 590 ESPN Radio in Omaha. Live on Twitter, live on YouTube as always. And as I speak of as always, We talk to Mike Sautter every Friday, as always. Mike, good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, it's weird that you're not here.
I got to work. So.
No. He heard. Oh, he's like, Elijah's sitting in with Andrew. I'll avoid that. I'm doing that interview from home today.
No, I'm at football right now. I'm at the locker room camp, Omaha edition. We have today's a jamboree, so Omaha North and Omaha Central are gonna scrimmage against each other a little bit, and then we have, south end or whatever other end of the field, we have Ralston, Omaha Burke, and Omaha Westview. So
a lot of football for you.
For some reason, this camp used to be really, really good, where you get, your Bellevue West and West Sides and stuff, but it's kind of fallen off a little bit the last few years. But yeah, it's usually a week-long deal. The Lincoln version is on the 13th. I'll be in Lincoln for their version of the locker room camp. Jamboree is what it's called today, where they kind of scrimmage with each other for a little bit, get some plays in and stuff against each other.
And Mike, this is something that I feel like's really developed within the past decade. This mentality with the high school football teams around Nebraska that summer is not just a time to go hit the weight room. It's a time to get your team together, to go scrimmage other schools around it, and really use it as an experience to get better. Have you seen that same transition that I've seen over the past decade? I feel like we weren't talking about these camps 10 years ago, but now every single high school in the state is doing it. If you're not doing it, you're behind the eight ball.
Yeah, it's something like this Jamboree camp is a week-long thing or a handful of days long thing. It's been going on for a while. But the advent of 7-on-7 and passing leagues on Wednesdays in Omaha, and they have them. I know a passing league in Columbus where they get Lakeview and stuff like that, and towns around Columbus, and Lincoln Southeast is actually coming up to the Omaha passing league stuff where that's just 7-on-7. So I think the advent of 7-on-7 is totally something new for sure. But they've been doing kind of padded camp practice-y stuff, install things for a while, I guess. What it does is prepare kids and teams to go to, I know Omaha North is going to Northwest Missouri's team camp next Friday and Saturday. It's this weekend. So it gives them, there's about a week. I think you can get a week to 12 days, maybe 10 days of padded practice in June. That's so people just kind of obviously are taking advantage of that. So it's our version of spring football, but it's not.
And Mike, with all the 7-on-7 stuff coming about, I think we need an option for the running backs and the offensive linemen, defensive linemen out there. I think you need to have a version of those instead of Wednesday night 7-on-7. You go Thursday night Oklahoma drills, where you just get a whole bunch of high schoolers in there from different schools, and you just run the Oklahoma drill for hours upon hours upon hours. I think that's what Nebraska high school football really needs.
Yeah, so they do, passing league stuff, but then they don't do anything for the linemen. There's nothing for the linemen. So it's just not a thing that they do. I don't even know what they do. I think they just do individual stuff.
Just drills on their own.
I can tell you from my time playing high school football, was a lot of going around to the different colleges and hitting their lineman camps. And then I remember a couple different 7-on-7 camps. They'd take me out there, and I was just the center who snapped the ball. It was the biggest waste of my time ever.
Right. Yeah. So you have to have someone snap it, and so you might as well get your center.
You get the center some reps. Yeah.
Snapping reps in. They can't leave the knee they're on to go out for a pass or anything. But yeah, that's probably about all you got.
So, Mike, speaking of Omaha Central, I brought up Caleb Pyfrom on the show this morning, and we were talking with Schaeffer and kind of talked a little bit of timeline with him. And Schaeffer said he would be shocked if Pyfrom wasn't committed at least before the start of the football season, or having his list narrowed down to like one or two schools. What do you see as a timeline for a kid like him?
Yeah, I think that's fair. He's on campus this weekend and Lincoln. I wouldn't be shocked if he just pulled the trigger this weekend, honestly. I'm going to talk to him today. I haven't talked to him yet, but my plan is to speak with him at some point today out here. So kind of get a gauge on what he's thinking. But I would echo Schaeff's thoughts. I think he's pretty close to being in, if you will. And I'd be a little surprised if it's somewhere else.
What about?
I think it's going to happen sooner than later.
Sure. What about some of the other names in the 2024 class in regards, especially quarterbacks? Because I know we talk a lot about Vrzal on the show, but we also talk. Gosh, I'm going to mispronounce Carson Ronner, and people are just sleeping on the both of them, really, to begin with. But I don't know if they are going to have too much anymore, because you have a guy that wins, a state championship with Westside, and then another whose numbers were really good at the Elite 11 regionals.
Yeah, I wrote something on Rauner, I think, was it last week, maybe beginning of the week, about just his plan for June. He's going to Princeton, Holy Cross, at the top of my head, those two for sure. I think maybe last weekend he went. Iowa State's another one that is shown interest in him. I don't know if that's a scholarship or walk-on situation, but they told him that they are going to take 2 quarterbacks this year, and so they want him to come camp, and he's doing that. So there's some interest across, I guess, all levels for Carson Ronner, and it's harder because he's a baseball player too. So finding time to leave, Legion baseball is now happening. So he's trying to balance, I guess, the schedule. He's a really smart kid. So I don't know. I think he's one that could end up at. He could be an FCS guy. Obviously, all the Ivies and stuff like that are.
Mm-hmm.
Could he be something higher than that? I don't know. Missouri is another one that, as soon as Danny Kalin decommitted, they were on him.
Yeah, Drink was on him like glue.
Yeah, on Rauner quick, and so they that's another one. They want him to come camp and see how he does there. So we'll see if he gets a higher level than that, but I don't know. I'm a little unsure, I guess, on what he'll end up being. I think he's really good, and Vrzal, on the other hand, I think everyone knows, right? I think some of the knock on him is his throwing motion, or doesn't throw the ball extremely well, but he's a fantastic athlete. So you athlete it up maybe or something. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know if you. I look at like a Nebraskan, what the little bit of practice stuff that I saw, and I don't know, they had quarterbacks running around. So maybe, I mean, that's probably too late now with Danny up for them, but that's okay. Vrzal will find a home. He'll be fine. Someone might take him as an athlete at first, but he will not pay to go to college unless he chooses. He will have options unless he chooses to, walk on somewhere or something. But I think he'll be fine. It's just the throwing thing is the problem.
Yeah, Mike, with both of those guys, with Vrzal and Rauner, I think maybe the athlete route may be the best for them figure out a spot. Because I look at their frames, 6'3", both around 200 pounds. They both have the frame to go play college football. And I think a big senior year for each of them could help their recruiting process. And that's kind of the point I want to go to next. What are some guys, not only just in the Omaha Metro, but across the state, that you think, their recruitment might be a little bit quiet right now, but a big senior season could really catapult them into the spotlight in terms of guys we're talking about going Division I, being high-level Power 5 guys?
Well, I'll give you one that I saw yesterday at North, and I'm going to see again today, is Samari Henderson is a defensive lineman, 3 technique for Omaha North. I really liked him yesterday. His frame is great. He's 6'4"-ish. People like to say he's like 6'6", 6'7". I don't know about that, but I think he's, let's go with 6'4.5" or 6'5". and he's probably 270, 260. He's a big, strong kid. Just has some stuff to clean up as far as just kind of not attitude, but, you know, like just focus, right? I think that's the thing. So he's one that is got some Division II stuff right now and going to be there. I think another guy like a Hollinger from Cross County is a kid that I think has a chance. Joseph Stein is a guy that I know Rogers, you and I talked about him. Geez, I think it was like January.
Right. Right.
About him gaining momentum, and people kind of came at me about like, oh, he only caught whatever. Well, that doesn't really matter. So
stats are skewed sometimes.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's all about like size and fit. So tight end position is one that in Nebraska right now is really high. I mean, it's really, really good. It's competitive. You have Ingerson, obviously, Carter Nelson's one. Like, you have a handful of tight end type of guys that'll be super, you know, intriguing. Lincoln, I don't know, right? Like, I don't know what it looks like right now. I feel like it's a little down, but we'll see. There isn't any high level guys with offers right now in Lincoln. So, or committable offers, I guess I should say.
Well, one guy I'll give you from Lincoln that I think personally a big senior year could blow him up is a guy that we were talking about earlier this week, Donald DeFrand. He's making the move to Lincoln Southeast. I think a big senior year could be big for him.
He could, yeah. I mean, he's a guy like Colorado, I guess, you know, air quotes offered a while ago, but that's not committable anymore, obviously. We'll see what that looks like, him transferring. I'd like to know more on like why, right? So that's one. Dash Bottom is a guy, Lincoln East running back that we've talked about before a ton. I think he's probably the best football player in Lincoln right now. All around, that's just the one name that really stands out to me. There's a lot of guys. We have 10, 11 guys that have power conference offers right now. And I think the number of group of 5, if you count those power conference guys, I think that pushes to like 15. That's a lot. Like, for the state of Nebraska, that's a lot. We're not talking FCS. We're talking, if you go to FCS, then now we're talking like 20 some, which is that's a pretty healthy number for 1.9 million people.
Hey, speaking of healthy numbers, I'm sure the UV index when you were in LA this weekend must have been pretty high.
No, it actually wasn't.
Whoa.
Super. May. I don't know what they call it. Like, it was cloudy, super cloudy the whole weekend for 5 days. So
how was basketball though?
It was fine. It was good. It was all right. I mean, there wasn't a lot of it though. I'm used to like staying in the gym all day.
Right. What was ETG? 5-1, 6-1?
5-1. Yep. 5-1. Lost in the semis. The 17s did.
Man.
CJ Mitchell had a great weekend for Westside, like the Westside point guard. Feel like he's finally back after being kind of not fully healthy and then not whatever. Like, I feel like he's finally it felt like he was super healthy. I mean, he was probing and hitting his little floater shots and finding open guys and moving the ball. He was really, really good.
We were talking a little bit of baseball with Ben Upton before we got to you, and then during the break we were going back and forth about just different guys in Omaha. Like, we brought up Carter Mick's name, and of course he's probably leaning basketball more than he is baseball, but then we talked about, Dermer's going to Iowa, and then just kept rattling off names on this list of why doesn't Omaha get more appreciation for the talent that they produce. Not just Omaha. We'll say the state of Nebraska, because Omaha, that's unfair. The state of Nebraska as a whole get more appreciation for putting out D1 caliber baseball players. Like, we touched on it a little bit during state, but now that, like, you look at Bovee entering the portal to get some leverage to go to the pros, you look at other guys in the pros, just where's the appreciation gone?
Yeah, I don't know. You have really, like, Tyson Lewis from Millard West, the shortstop, who transferred from UTAN. Like, that kid
he's unbelievable.
Really good. Cam Kojal is going to Vanderbilt. I mean, it's Vanderbilt, right? So I don't know. I guess it's just not talked about a ton, if you will. Maybe that's it. I think maybe part of it too is baseball is partial scholarship stuff, right? So it's like kind of looked down upon, I guess, a little bit, where it's not, kids are still paying to go to school. There's maybe one full guy on every team, maybe one in college baseball. So you kind of look at it like that a little bit. That's can be a little questionable, but yeah, I don't know. And Carter Mix should really think about playing baseball.
Yes, he should.
I know basketball is his thing, or what he kind of pegged himself, but he had a really good season. I think he should probably think about maybe changing his mind a little bit.
Talking with Mike Sautter here. It's Coffee and Cream, a Friday edition. And Mike,
that's Shane on the drops.
Oh, excuse me. I thought Mike was in here talking. I'm like, oh, what's Mike gonna say? Okay, Mike.
The next time I see Shane, I'm gonna stiff arm his little.
Hey, that's every time you see Shane.
Oh, man, you put me on the spot. All right, Shane.
Mike. To get back to the point here, though, we hear some football drills going in the background. And I've personally always been partial to watching the offensive line, the defensive linemen do their pass rush drill, where you get one guy going at it, and you get to see what kind of pass rushing acumen these guys have. If you had to power rank your favorite football drills to watch through camp season, which drills are you picking just from your neutral observer's position? It's just fun to watch.
Oh, man. Well, my goal line is probably my favorite.
Oh, good choice.
And when I go to practice or go to whatnot, like practices or camp or all those things, I, for some reason, always gravitate towards the line. Here's why, is because when I'm watching a game on a Friday night, I'm not watching the line as much. I'm trying to get the play with a video or trying to who scored a touchdown, report on the game, right? When I go to these things, I want to dig deep into I spend a lot of time with the linemen, and that's the reason why, is because they don't get talked about near as much unless they have 3 sacks or something, right, in a game. As far as defensive linemen, offensive linemen never get talked about during the season, no matter what they do. So that's why I do that. And like any level of football, if your offensive line is good, you're probably going to be pretty good. So that's why I really try and focus a lot of my effort on that. But I would say, goal line is probably my favorite. And if you're at a practice or camp or something, there's enough kids, to go good on good, where you have the best, you're not rotating linemen. That's a lot more fun too.
Those goal line periods, when it's good on good, they get fiery.
Yeah, and there's a lot of talking and stuff, and I'm cool with that.
Oh wait, you like talking? No.
No, I'm cool with the talking, like the people that if kids are talking stuff back and forth.
That's what I'm saying. You're not much of an ish talker though. I'm surprised you like that.
Yeah, no, not at all. I'm quiet. I don't say anything much at all. I don't really, not competitive whatsoever.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Hey,
but one guy that I'm standing next to who's not in pads today is Tyson Carey. So I saw him yesterday when I was in North and told me he's taking the camp season off because he's recovering from some injury stuff, some nagging stuff throughout the wrestling season. So he is not playing today, but he's being a good teammate, coaching him up, I think, a little bit.
That's important. That's really important. Speaking of
he's a large man, by the way.
Do you think you could take
anybody compared to you?
Could you take him down on the wrestling mat, you think?
No. My wrestling guy retired.
He couldn't take me down on the wrestling mat.
I guarantee you. I don't know how many stitches in my knee/leg right now. I guarantee you couldn't take me down today.
Hey, I'd win.
Guarantee you couldn't.
We're side bets are going down. We're gonna move all the tables at HVC here in the stage area, and it's happening.
Oh, that would be a fun event.
I get my stitches out on Tuesday, and hopefully by then I can actually walk straight. Friday. I don't care. There's zero chance. Andrew. There's no chance.
It'd be fun. Move the stage out here, get some wrestling mats down, a rumble at the club.
Why not?
That's fine. All right. Whatever you want to do. Anytime.
Anytime, anywhere, huh?
Yeah. 100%.
It's all right.
Not scared of you at all.
Oh. All right, big guy.
No doubt. No doubt.
I'm going to take tips from Tyson Terry.
You would need some coaching to even come close.
I'll take some tips from Cobra Kai. Just go for the knee.
we saw that I'm proficient, right, as a wrestler, correct? Like
you did beat Chuck. You did take down Chuck.
Yeah,
that was pretty impressive.
Chuck, who is like 45 more pounds than me,
heavy
right?
favorite,
and about 10 years younger. So, yeah, that happened. Don't forget.
Cam chimes in on the stream. Let's get ready to rumble.
Yeah, exactly. No, let's get ready to Rogers is what it is. That's what's going to be screaming through the speakers.
Hey, any day. Anytime you want the heat, you just let me.
Oh, okay, big guy. All right. Last thing here. Last thing, Sautter, and I'll let you go. One more thing. Speaking of football camps just in general, and this is something that DB was talking about on the show a little bit yesterday. Why do you think Nebraska offered their camps in such a general sense to the in-state guys specifically?
They just want to get a handle on who's who. I think they want to just know who's even good enough. Or like, I think they're still kind of not struggling, but I think they're still kind of like trying to evaluate guys, and it's an opportunity to get evaluated. Okay, let's go back to, revisiting his history here. But Teddy Rizak, after he got an offer from Notre Dame, they were like, "Oh man, we're sorry, whatever," right? Like you apologize for misevaluating him, the tape and stuff. After he got then they try to get in, and then it's text and phone call. Yeah, it's text and phone call saying, "Oh, we're sorry. How can we?" Whatever. Well, it's too late. So
yeah,
I think that's the thing. Now you still got to get kids to go to camp,
right?
Right. Like if I'm a FCS guy or whatever, or like close to getting that level of offer, I don't go to I don't even know if I go to their camp. To be honest, I just kind of am like, hey, what? Like everyone else thinks I'm good enough. You're not. Why do I need to go to your camp?
Interesting. Yeah, well, maybe just surround yourself with the best players in the state, or if you know who's going to be there.
Yeah, I don't know if everyone's going to be there.
Right. Fair point. Sautter, we appreciate you, man. Thanks so much. Enjoy the jamboree.
Right. Yeah, but
we will kind of stick with similar football talk. It was a point that Elijah wanted to talk about coming into today. We'll do that next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Before we go any further, I want to take a moment and tell you about Dingman's Collision Center. Dingman's is your one-stop shop for all your car needs, and they do more than just repair. They can even change your oil, which I need to get done when I come back from my trip to St. Louis because, Elijah, that's about it's close to 1,000 miles. Like it's like 800 miles there and back, and I am probably 800 miles away from an oil change. So I will be taking my car over to Dingman's to get that done because they give me the best service, and they'll also give you the best service as well. Guess what else I'm taking back home? Some Zipline beer for my parents because that is a fan favorite in my household, and they can't get it. I don't know if they can get it in St. Louis. They probably just don't look hard enough if it is there, but they probably like that I pay for it. So I'll take some Zipline beer back to them. And then when they come up for the CWS, I'll have to take them to the downtown Omaha location, the tap room over there, so that we can hang out there before the games and then go back after the games because the games will be on. And of course, they will be pouring fresh from the tap. And boy, is that important to me. I love draft beer versus can. That's just a preference, but they can do that there.
Speaking of Zipline, you can't beat a Copper Alt on tap. It's as simple as that.
Copper Alt, is that the orange can?
Yes,
okay, because we did some taste
a
testing.
burnt amber.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Copper Alt was very, very good. And then, of course, dear old Nebraska Brew. That's kind of a fan favorite of a lot of people. And then also, I want to say thank you to Dyer Law for all that they've done with us and our show. They just even recently won a client $3 million after damages. So DYERlaw.com if you want to chat with trusted professionals about personal injury claim. That's DYER.law, and 402-393-7529 is the number for them. So we appreciate all of our great sponsors throughout the show. And we appreciate all the interaction that we get on the show from you guys out there as well, whether it's on StreamYard, whether it's on the phone. Do we want to go to him first or second? Do you want to touch on your point? Let's touch on your point first.
Okay.
And then we'll get to Ramon. He's hanging out on line 1 with us.
Yeah, thanks for being patient with us, Ramon.
The point that Elijah wanted to make was something that was kind of on the basis of what happened yesterday with the SEC going with 8 conference games versus 9. They were pushing for 9, and then they settled back on 8. I think this conversation was completely overblown and overrated. That's just me. I saw Kirby Smart also called it overrated, but maybe that's because he benefits, from it too. So why do you, or I guess just in particular, why do you want to bring this up today? Like what's been on your mind about this?
Just that the SEC has this advantage over the rest of college football in that they get to play essentially one less Power 5 school per year based on how they schedule compared to the rest of college football. And there's no disadvantage to the SEC. Like I understand why they stick with 8 games. I would too if I was them. There is no advantage to them going to 9, and there's no disadvantage to them staying at 8. But Brett McMurphy and Scott Docterman yesterday on Twitter, and something Trev Alberts chimed in on it. We'll get to there in just a second, but they brought up the stat: teams that are playing at least 10 Power 5 opponents in 2023. So 10 of your 12 games are against Power 5. In the Big Ten, 13 of the 14 member institutions are playing at least 10 Power 5 opponents. As for the Big 12, it's 11 of 14. In the Pac-12, it's 10 of 12. The ACC, 10 of their 15 schools have at least 10 Power 5 opponents on their schedule in 2023. As for the SEC, 2 of the 14 SEC schools.
It's pretty crazy.
And it's only one game. I get that. But in the era of the college football playoff,
that's the
one
problem.
Game
can tell it all.
One loss can derail a season.
It all.
It's an unfair advantage to SEC because they're not getting any built-in disadvantages for college football playoff selection. If you're an SEC champion, even a one-loss SEC conference championship loser, you still have a great shot at the college football playoff, despite the fact that every other conference in America has a tougher route to get to either 12-0 or 11-1. In the SEC, it's only one game, but one game is huge.
One game's huge, and regardless in football. I mean, it's not just in the SEC. It's just regardless in the whole landscape of football. One game can do everything. I mean, you lose a game, and you in the SEC championship game, right? You could have one loss and then have eventually 2 losses and still make the top 4 in the SEC.
Yep.
And that's solely because you're playing the best competition. But if you're not, you're at an advantage in some light at this point by only having to do it 8 times versus the 9. Here's where I think you have where you run into the biggest problem. It's not with the Georgias of the world, and it's not with the Bamas. They're going to be there. They're kind of always going to be there until they're not. It's the Floridas of the world where you could play or you could lose 3 games in a season on average, but instead now if you don't have to play that extra conference game, you only lose 2, and you knock out a team in the Big 10, a Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC that played a tougher opponent. And if we're going on strength of schedule and competitive balance, that's an unfair advantage for the SEC. Ramification is the word that you used earlier on. That's what in all honesty, needs to happen. And instead, this is what's going to happen with college football. They're going to let it play out, right? You're going to get the extended playoff. Then people are going to raise hell about it later, and then it's going to change. But why did we even get to this point? Like, that's always kind of where I rest with things. Like, why even let it get there?
And I'm trying to pull up the schedule here. Yeah, okay. So for Tennessee football last season, they had a 4-game stretch. We'll go 4-game stretch. They started off with that win in dramatic fashion over Bama. The next week, they play UT Martin on homecoming. They followed it up with a win against Kentucky and then a loss to Georgia. Think about how different that 4-game stretch is and how different that Kentucky game looks. If your 4-game stretch is Alabama, Ole Miss, Kentucky, and Georgia. That's now a brutal 4-game stretch. But what you get is that advantage of when you're playing UT Martin, you don't have to game plan for UT Martin. You go out to that week of practice, you know who you're game planning for?
The following week.
Kentucky, and even probably past Kentucky, Georgia.
Even though
you're already putting in that game plan as opposed to having to look at the opponent that's on your schedule. So despite the fact that it's just one game, you're giving yourself now 2 weeks of prep work. Like last year, Alabama, they played Austin Peay the week before they played Auburn. I know last year wasn't the season that Auburn would have liked, but the Iron Bowl is always going to be a battle. Right. And what they got is they got 2 weeks of preparation for the Iron Bowl because they get an extra non-conference game that they get to put into their November slate.
I'm with you. And
it's a minor advantage, but any advantage in college football
Right.
that is different than the rest of college football changes how we have to perceive the college football playoff and the selection process.
And by you saying that they're planning for Georgia, it's not like, hey, the whole team is planning for Georgia. It's, hey, there's individuals that are already looking ahead. Of course, they're practicing for the week at hand.
Yeah.
But there's other people on staff that are like, no, your job is actually 2 weeks
Yeah.
down the road.
Yeah.
And you're
we don't need to watch the film for UT Martin. Start doing some advanced prep work on Georgia's defense. Find something we can do.
Right. It's a good point. So unfortunately, we'll just have to watch it play out versus anything else. And they shake your head at it in the very end.
They did say they may come back and look at this in 2025. It's going to be 2024, 8 conference games, divisionless in the SEC, and then maybe they reevaluate for 2025. But unless there's any ramifications that occur for only having 8, it's going to remain 8.
Right. Let's go to the phone now. We'll change gears and talk to Ramon Shane. Ramon, thanks for waiting and being patient with us. Good morning. What's up?
Hey, Andrew, Elijah, and Shane, man. In remembrance of John Beasley, I had a quick story about how I asked him if I could sit in on his production behind the scenes when he had his theater.
Neat.
And the first night I was there, I just kind of directed traffic in the parking lot, and then inside I helped clean up after him and everything. The second night, the audio person was there, but she was sick, and she said she wasn't going to be able to make it. So they turned to me and they said, "Hey, Ramon, you think you could do the audio?" And I'm like, "What?" And so the light person, her name was Miranda. She said, "Hey, Ramon, I'll sit right next to you. We'll get through it. All I need is an extra set of hands." So we did it, and because she was fantastic. So now I feel like I'm ready for prime time. A few months later, I auditioned along with a whole big group of people, and I quickly find out I don't know how to memorize lines under pressure. And they come and get me, and I'm in a room with a panel and Tyrone Beasley, and they say he's going to read the scene with me, and I'm having an internal panic attack. The words are blurred and jumping around the page, so I just start making up stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And at the very end, I settled down enough to read the last line. I put the scene next to my side. I lift my other hand, triumphantly saying the last line. And the look of disdain on Tyrone Beasley's face.
That's awesome.
And John Beasley walks over with his John Beasley smile that we're all familiar with. And he says, "Thank you, Ramon." And he gently directs me to the exit.
Oh, so you were his Rudy.
So you didn't get the part, I'll assume?
I did not.
I
didn't. But he was nice
shocked.
about it. He was always nice. He was always really nice about it.
Yeah, Omaha legend.
We
John
appreciate
Beasley.
you, man. Thanks for giving us a call and telling the story.
All right.
Call back anytime. Wow. Yeah. Rest in peace, John Beasley. Absolute legend.
Absolute legend, yeah.
In the film and TV realm of things.
To be missed.
When we come back, we will change gears, talk to Matt Vrzal, as we always do, to close down Friday mornings here on Coffee and Cream. Stick around.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning. Now let's find out what Matt Vrzal is better at. Telling stories or making pizza.
Matt.
Matt's an exceptional young man.
Matt Vrzal.
Happy birthday, Matt.
You know, Matt, he's a tremendous athlete.
Matt Vrzal.
Come on, Matt, I'm with you.
You know, like Matt Vrzal, you're one of the sexiest people in the world, but you're not one of the most beautiful. How did that happen?
Here is Matt Vrzal.
All right, Matt, thank you very much.
Always a great intro. One of the best intros that we have on the show, Coffee and Cream in the Morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. Elijah Herbal in for DB. I'm Andrew Rogers, winding this thing down on a Friday. And as we always do, we talk to Matt Vrzal, who I knew I would probably take some heat from when he called in this morning because he wanted to be next of kin in the chair. What's up, Matty?
You're just making Elijah do double duty. Like, that's not very nice.
That wasn't me, though. That wasn't my decision. I
know. I heard that. I heard it, Sasha, who I've been the biggest fan of forever.
Until
now.
To
get here, like, you can ask Sasha, like, way back in the day when she worked for another company. I was trying to get a show together, me and Sasha, because Sasha is wicked knowledgeable about sports, but she's very, like, coy about it. I was like, baby girl, just put this thing on blast and let people know, like, you're a dude. And she would never do it.
She did fantasy football with me.
So, now I get it. She just hates me.
Now
I understand.
You know, because I told Shane, I go, oh, man, you know, Verz, he wanted in. But here's the story. Here's the backstory. So, actually, we were going to do, I think, national radio today because with DB out, I have engagement photos tonight in St. Louis. So, it would kind of like eased the stress if we would have just said, we'll just take the day and do that. But since Elijah gave his AAA notice of, hey, I can come up, I can be called up to the big leagues. Here he is.
I get the call earlier this week, and I go, I'm not going to say no to an opportunity to get on the air. Are you kidding me? Like, this is like on one hand, is this a little extra work for me? Yeah, but on the other hand, is my job as taxing as a lot of other people out here? No, I put on a headset and talk about sports.
Yeah, you don't toss pizzas all day like Verz.
There you go, bud.
That's how you build them triceps.
Elijah.
Yeah.
Good perspective.
So you forgive him?
You gotta fly that desolate wasteland that is St. Louis.
Yeah, no, I'm not flying. I'm driving.
Why don't you? What time are pictures?
They're at 7.
Oh, so you just get out and put the hammer down.
Yeah,
going like you're going 90.
No, I'm going the speed limit, but you know what that is.
Oh my God.
The speed limit is where I'm going, right? No.
Speed limit's the red line on the red.
It's always probably a good 8, 9 over. I try not to hit double digits.
Okay, you know the saying about all the popos, right? If you're 8, you're great. If you're 9, you're mine.
Yep.
So
I'm a risk taker when I get to 9.
Yeah, living on the edge.
I got to go all full DB on you today because normally it's like you guys, giving each other the business. And so I got to ask, what's on the docket today, Matty?
We'll just still talk about him. I mean, like probably at some AAU scouting super camp, like he'll have his kids like. Zoe is probably at some like international cheer competition right now that we don't know about. Helicopter dad just can't let him out of his sight. No, I got nothing, man. I got nothing. It's just the middle of it, and basketball is the dumbest game in America is playing right now, so I got to wait for hockey tonight, which is good. So yeah, I do like the Joker though. I like he plays rough. And I'm good with that. I'm good with people getting messed up in the game.
That's Elijah's guy.
Yeah, Matt, I'm a big Nuggets guy. And the best way I heard that game last night described is like Joker versus the Heat is like a Big Ten football team against a Pac-12 football team in the bowl game, aside from Utah. Like, it's just that rough and tumble physical. Like, he's going to back you down, get you in the paint, and hit you with the fundamentals compared to the Pac-12, a little more flashy. They got the three-point shooting, you know what I'm saying? So that's the best way I've seen that described. I think whenever you put it in football terms, which you should do for most things in life, put it in football terms, I think it's a pretty good way to put it. But, Matt, do you want to talk some football? I guess I'll leave it open to you. I got a football question for you.
Oh, go ahead, bud.
Okay. I assumed you'd want to talk some football, but you never know. Maybe you should want to talk about DB some more. We were talking with Mike Sautter a little bit earlier about like the rise of 7-on-7 in the high school football scene and how every single Wednesday night you got high schools around Omaha going and playing 7-on-7. And I want to get your take from an offensive line point of view, because you hear about the Wisconsins of the world, the Michigans of the world. They really build their offensive line on kids they find around the state. Like so many Wisconsin offensive linemen the past decade have been kids that went to high school in Wisconsin and got built up that way. So if you were running a developmental program for offensive linemen within the state of Nebraska to build an offensive line pipeline from high schools in Nebraska to the University of Nebraska, what types of things would you be doing in the summer months?
So here's how the world has changed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So back in the day, before parents fully bought into the fact that I can buy my kid into a scholarship, which the only thing dumber than basketball is 7-on-7. Like it is the simply dumbest money grab ever.
I thought you'd say that.
It makes zero sense. It is, and then it warps the brains of all these gurus that go do it because they don't teach any, and we've experienced it firsthand. Now, maybe I have a minute sample size, but you've got some organizations where you'll take a quarterback, the coach is literally on the field standing behind them, and he'll just say, throw it to Timmy. And the kid has learned no coverage, no responsibility, no route concepts, no nothing. But parents check clears every week, and they don't care. They just want to make that dollar. So back in the day, linemen would make basketball teams and they would make baseball teams, and you were doing athletic things. Those have gone away. Rarely do you see the big man being a big man and playing other things, being athletic. So now you come into a spot where you've got to, like, wrestling, thank God for wrestling, because it takes your 180s, your 190s, your 215s, your 275s. Like, I think they need to throw in another division at like 245, 235, 245, and put another weight in there. And I think you would see more kids go to wrestling, or more coaches would be willing to get them into wrestling, because if I've got a 240 and he can only wrestle that, and maybe I have the weights wrong, but he can only wrestle that like 215 or 190 range. Well, now he's got to cut weight or put on a bunch, and I don't know if that weight's going to be good or bad, right? So if you throw another weight in the middle there, I think you up that, but now there's only a select amount of spots on that team. So what I'm currently trying to work on is a facility that provides athletic environment for bigger kids, because their natural thing is, I'm going to go lift weights at my school. I'm going to go home on the couch. I'm going to put on my headset. I'm going to play this dumbass video game. I'm going to start talking S to my buddies so I could actually be out doing stuff with. So I'm fine with video games as long as you play Madden. Like, play Madden all you want. And for this reason, some of the best football minds that I know are amazing at that game, because it's conceptual.
Right.
It's, you want to play this coverage, I'm going to run this. Okay, he may blitz this, so what's my bailout, right? Like, I learn it. It's a good way to learn. I fully endorse. I'll tell my linemen all the time. Now, we sit in a different posture when we play because they don't want them hunched over. Belly button. If you put the controller in your belly button and then you sit upright, your thumbs will go faster. And they'll tell you they got better when I told them how to do that. I don't even play dumb video games. But something like that. Other things. We played a ton of racquetball, so I'm trying to find some racquetball courts where I can get
That's sweet.
some parents. Now, the other part of this is that if I do this and pull it off, there will be a monthly update sent to the parent. This is what your kid did. He didn't show up these days. He did show up these days. These were the things that he was told to work on. Here's the things we did to work on him with this, like those kind of deals, because I think that's the miss in a lot of this.
Right.
There's, well, your kid plays on our team. Okay, well, what is he learning? Is he learning how to drop his hips on a cut? Is he learning that in cover 2, we got to expose this part of the field? If they roll into cover 3, how is he adapting to that? What is my quarterback son learning, right? Or what is my receiver son learning? So those are pieces that are missing. I feel in any form of coaching, you can never over communicate, but there's got to be something for the big kid to do. Like I said, follow them into wrestling. If you want to go real hardcore, follow them to jiu-jitsu, where they learn hits and they learn. But you've got to find something to occupy time, because young men they're like puppies. Like you can't, if you let a puppy sit around, it's going to get pent up and it's going to freak out at some point in time. But if you go out and run that thing till it gets home and it passes out, then you're good.
Yeah.
Right? But they'll get better. Their mind is stimulated. Those be better. You probably get off a lot of these ADHD meds too, but that's a different story for a different day. But that's something I'm looking at, because there's a gap there for the linemen. Then you can go out and do a bunch of who can flip the tire fastest and what's our combined bench press to try to combat 7-on-7. I would rather just do what linemen do. Like, you go do the flashy stuff and do your dance and get in your checkered outfits, and we're going to go do work. And then when it gets to the game, you're going to realize you need us a lot more than we need you.
Wow. Verz, very astute. Being a student. Like, wow, great. Really good stuff today. You just took up the entirety of your segment just right there. So I'm going to let you go.
I'll quickly say, though, as a guy who grew up an offensive lineman, played racquetball, did jiu-jitsu, preach. Those things 100% I think can really help offensive linemen in the state. Agility, body mechanics, all of that. It's perfect. Love that.
One of the best linemen I've ever had was a 5'8" little guy in Malcolm. Scotty Robotham was his name. Was a judo champ. Nobody could block him.
Yep.
It was awesome.
You've probably had some fun playing with him. Verz, we appreciate you, man.
All right, boys. We'll see you.
See ya. That is Matt Vrzal, former Husker and Pison's Pizzeria owner. Elijah, thanks for filling in this morning, man. It was fun.
Thanks for having me.
It was fun. Now you have to go back and do an afternoon show.
Yeah, join us, Hail Varsity Radio, 4 to 6 this afternoon.
Hey, good plug. Great plug. That's it for this Friday edition of Coffee and Cream. We'll be back next week.